Chapter 2682. The Taigu Emperor's Sword Awakened. Insulting the primordial immortal emperors completely ignited the fury of both sides. The Liang Emperor's sword radiance shot into the sky, resonating with the voracious wolf star's radiance. Buzz! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! In an instant, a Taigu Emperor's weapon awakened, instantly activating the Great Tao's edge weapon, the four-sided cauldron, and the Thunder God's hammer. The primordial master divine weapons and the Taigu Emperor's weapon were on the same level. Not to be outdone, they shot out the primordial master divine aura and activated on their own accord. The Emperor's aura and divine aura surged, intertwining with each other. However, in the distant Void Ridge and undying immortal world, the light from the voracious wolf constellation was only a little more intense than usual. It was so intense that one could see an ancient star flashing in the daytime, competing with the sun and the moon. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan held the human Tao Emperor's pagoda in his hand and remained silent. But the moment the Liang Emperor's sword and the three primordial master divine weapons awakened, the human Tao Emperor's pagoda revealed its might, releasing a light that could steal the heavens and earth. Its aura shot into the sky, and immortal light bathed his body. Even his face couldn't be seen clearly. Yi Qinghan's eyes exuded a bone-chilling aura that was 3 parts pure and holy and 7 parts evil. Today, either the Yen tribe or the 3 primordial master divine weapons will break their inheritance. Yi Qinghan's words were concise and comprehensive. Here, time could be wasted because any weapon could be used. Even if the voracious wolf star was destroyed, no one would find out. Either kill me or be killed by me. There was no phrase that carried the meaning of a fight to the death more than this. 4 against 6. It was originally a disadvantage, but the advantage was the human Tao Emperor's pagoda. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's palm shot up. The human Tao Emperor's pagoda soared into the sky, expanding infinitely until it almost covered the sky. Boom boom boom! The rocky ground cracked. The rocks that had been baptized by countless years of gales were now unable to withstand a single blow. The bottom of the pagoda released a light that enveloped Yi Qinghan. The injuries in his body slowly healed, and the Yen race blood in his body erupted like never before. At this moment, the owner was unable to suppress the bloodline in her body. She was also one of the 10 great ancient bloodlines. Now that her bloodline had awakened, it was incompatible with the blood of the Yen clan. The seed of hatred in her bloodline was growing and sprouting. The owner's face was ferocious, revealing an ominous glint. A touch of bewitching red shot out from his eyes, but his soul was also struggling bitterly. Yi Qinghan glanced at the owner out of the corner of his eye and said calmly, "Aunt Owner, you should leave first. Leave this to us." The owner didn't dare to hesitate any longer. She didn't know that the hatred in her bloodline would be so strong that it conflicted with her soul. If she didn't awaken her bloodline, the hatred would awaken on its own. Whoosh! The owner of the workshop left by leaping into the air. With the help of the power of the stars, he broke through the shackles of gluttonous star and headed straight for outer space. He rushed in the direction of Su Tian Cliff, intending to intercept the inheritor of the immemorial 5 element. The situation on Gluttonous Star showed the battle situation of the immemorial era. The Yen clan and Chu Shirshir's bloodline joined forces to fight against the immemorial ancient gods. However, their momentum was much weaker than before. The ancient immortals and the special ancient bloodlines didn't come. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to escape death today even if he grew wings. Only Huolingtian from the Yen clan didn't come. There were only 3 people left in the huge human Yen clan. It was too tragic. The determination of revenge shot out from the hearts of the 3 people. Today, as long as they cut off the inheritances of the 3 immemorial ancient gods, the Yen clan would have an easy time in the future. Chu Shiliang stared at Tao Sovereign. The Liang Emperor sword in his hand shot out a murderous intent. Yi Qingxing was only in the 3rd stage, but he held one of the Yen clan's 5 swords, the human sword. He was also in the 3rd stage of the immemorial realm. He was completely different from the current era. His combat power definitely wouldn't lose to a 4th stage immemorial divine general. Brother Yi, you hold back one of the divine generals. Senior Brother Chu, you help block Dao Sovereign. I'll kill the remaining 3. Kill. The last word kill was soul-stirring. It reverberated on the dead star for a long time. Okay, the two said in unison. Their determination to fight was overwhelming. Today, they would restore the glory of their ancestors and avenge their ancestors. Even if they died, they wouldn't regret it. At this time, the Thunder Emperor, Dao Sovereign, and the martial arts inheritor all had disdainful expressions. 6 against 3. If they still couldn't win, it would be a joke. You're not the world's #1 emperor, and they're not the Yen clan's elder and Chu Shiliang. Today, your inheritances will end here. Whoosh! The 3 experts held the immemorial ancient god weapons in their hand. Their power was overwhelming. They glanced at the sky and found that Su Tianya hadn't arrived yet. This slight movement exposed their mentality. They felt that even if the 3 inheritors joined forces, they might not be able to kill Yi Qinghan. They had to wait for the 4th immemorial ancient god inheritor to arrive. The immemorial ancient god weapons were afraid of the immemorial yin-yang sword because it was only a legend. The unknown was the most terrifying. Moreover, they didn't have any enmity with each other before. They didn't want to increase their enmity. But against the human Dao Emperor Pagoda, they had no choice but to fight. Roar! Whoosh! The 3 immemorial ancient god weapons rushed into the sky and collided with the human Dao Emperor Pagoda. It was as if the Taigu Emperor had arrived in person. Their aura crushed the earth, and in the blink of an eye, they were far away from everyone. The human Dao Emperor Pagoda fought 1 against 3 and crushed their joint forces. The shock waves shattered mountain ranges and surged into the depths of the universe. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The immemorial ancient god weapons fought the human Dao Emperor Pagoda to the death. They had completely inherited the hatred of the immemorial ancient god weapons. Even if they died today, they would continue the immemorial war. The 4-sided cauldron opened the mouth of the sky-devouring cauldron and crushed the order of the great Dao. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The source of thunder and lightning was summoned by the thunder god hammer. Thick lightning swords shattered the immemorial ancient god weapons and killed their way to the top of the human Dao Emperor Pagoda. Roar! The great Dao weapons pierced through 10,000 li and attacked the top of the human Dao Emperor Pagoda. 1. The human Dao Emperor Pagoda erupted and its aura surged 10,000 li. It left the ravenous wolf star and killed its way into the depths of the universe to begin the final battle. However, only 8 of the 9 levels of the pagoda were releasing the power of the human Dao. The top of the 9th level was dim, as if it was being suppressed. In fact, it wasn't being suppressed. The top of the pagoda had been destroyed during the immemorial ancient god era. Otherwise, how could the 3 immemorial ancient god weapons be so arrogant? This was also the reason why the great Dao weapons, Thunder God Hammer, and 4-sided cauldron were not afraid of the human Dao Emperor Pagoda. The immemorial ancient god weapons and the human Dao Emperor Pagoda were afraid of destroying their respective successors. Therefore, they fought further and further away. In the blink of an eye, they had disappeared into the depths of the universe. Dead stars were constantly exploding. The dead stars lacked order and their sizes were not large enough to withstand these heavenly weapons. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom. Yi Qinghan looked up at the battle in the depths of the universe. He took a deep breath and circulated his astral soul. He mobilized the power of the ravenous wolf star and formed a domain here. The gravity could crush a 2nd-degree realm. Even a 3rd-degree realm would feel that the gravity was sticky and couldn't be shaken off. Whoosh! Boom boom boom. Yi Qinghan's palm streaked across his forehead. His astral soul became clearer, as if a star was blooming on his forehead. Bang! Ka ka ka, the rocks beneath his feet cracked. His battle robes fluttered and his blood-red hair danced. Kill! Yi Qinghan let out a furious roar, revealing an ominous glint in his eyes. His right arm smashed towards the Thunder Emperor. Boom! Just as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, the aura of the fourth immemorial ancient god burst forth. Su Tianya took a detour to the ravenous wolf star. The owner didn't stop him. Maybe the owner's hatred suppressed his heart and allowed him to come. The immemorial ancient five elements immemorial ancient god weapons directly rushed into the depths of the universe, wanting to destroy the human Tao Emperor Pagoda first. The Liang Emperor sword broke free from Chu Shijun's restraints and followed in the blink of an eye. On the ravenous wolf star, there were only 4 immemorial ancient god inheritances, 2 divine generals, 2 Yen clan inheritances, and 1 Liang Emperor inheritance left. From 6 against 3, it became 7 against 3. The battle situation was even more suffocating. Yi Qinghan was even more brutal. He attacked indiscriminately, wanting to stop the 4 immemorial ancient god inheritances so that Chu Shijun and Yi Qinxing could kill the 2 divine generals in advance and come to help him. Boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. There were countless afterimages on the dead stars. Palm prints covered the sky and shattered order within 100 miles. Chapter 2683. Bang. Boom. The Taigu Emperor fought for supremacy. His fists and kicks were like divine weapons that could kill without blinking. Each of his fists and kicks could shatter an ordinary big shot. The 9 experts fought on the ravenous wolf star, causing flames and lightning to fill the sky. A simple domain could not suppress the 4 primordial chief god inheritors. Even without the support of chief god weapons, the primordial chief god divinities were still there. The 4 chief god inheritors had endless power. As long as the chief god divinities were not shattered, they would not be defeated. Whoosh! The radiance of the master god technique pierced through the clouds, and the Yen tribe's grand divine ability covered the sky and covered the sun. However, the 4 of them didn't give Yi Qinghan a chance to gather his strength. Their fists broke through his defenses, and the shroud was torn apart. The barrier shook. Boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. Yi Qinghan's body transformed into a sharp weapon as he clashed with the martial arts inheritors. Each time, he fought with the intent to injure both sides. When enemies met on a narrow path, whoever wanted to retreat would die first. Kill! Yi Qinghan roared. His recently recovered body was injured again in the blink of an eye. His blood dyed the ravenous wolf star. The power of the stars was endless. His opponents had primordial chief god divinities, while he had the ravenous wolf star to provide him with endless power. Each of his fists contained the peak of power. Ka ka ka. With a single punch, the martial arts supreme's bones were shattered. The profound martial arts filled the world. The power of the human Tao transformed into streaks of light that wove through the heavens and the earth, tearing at each other with the sovereign power of the martial Tao, the 5 elements, the lightning sovereign, and the grand Tao sovereign. Just by relying on the power of the human Tao alone, they weren't at a disadvantage at all. Bang bang bang. Yi Qinghan fought the 4 experts by himself. He was as fast as lightning, relying on his strength, speed, and battle techniques to stall for time. However, as time passed, the injuries on his body became more and more severe. Ka ka ka. Bang. Boom. Yi Qinghan took out the 7-foot berserk hammer and released a power that could tear apart the universe. Each strike was domineering and powerful, causing the 4 experts' hands to go numb. The Thunder Emperor and I will be the main attackers. The 2 of you will support us from the back. Don't give him a chance. The martial ancestor was extremely ruthless. His palm, martial path heavenly descend, collided with the 7 feet heavy berserk, bringing with it the power of heaven and earth, controlling the profound mysteries of the martial path. It was as vast and mighty as the heavenly might. The palm imprint shattered the saber light and blasted onto the saber edge, not yielding an inch. Kill! The power of a supreme martial artist surged out from his limbs and bones. Wave after wave, they were like the waves of the sea, surging and overflowing, shaking the dead stars until they trembled chaotically. Intense earthquakes occurred in many places because of this. Half of the planet collided, forming numerous towering mountain peaks and boundless deep ravines. And in the depths of the ravines there was actually water surging. The covetous wolf constellation was not a dead star since ancient times, but a living star. Because of man-made destruction, it was a dead star that finally fell silent in the primal chaos, but its internal essence did not change. Yi Qinghan and the others had no time to be shocked. This massive planet should be the inner world of some supreme martial artist. This world had either been abandoned by its master, or its master had been killed. Otherwise, it would not have fallen to such a state. To be able to possess a world as vast as the covetous wolf constellation, its master's strength was absolutely heaven-defying and fate-changing, conquering the strength of the entire universe. This kind of person should not have been killed. It was very likely that they were like the primordial yin-yang immortal emperor, voluntarily abandoning everything and choosing to leave. These were all accidental discoveries, but these 9 people were not here to do archaeology, but to fight. Xiu xiu xiu. Hua hua hua. Yi Qinghan's veins bulged. His right arm once again bloomed with the power of human Tao, forcefully shattering the martial path heavenly descend. He was just about to continue attacking the supreme martial artist and kill another expert, but at this time, a rumbling sound shattered his sea of knowledge. His body swayed, and his soul seemed to explode. The sound of the great Tao was dignified and heavy. It was more majestic than the sea, more deafening than heavenly thunder. It was an ancient soul attack that specialized in destroying souls. One, boom! The sound of the great Tao forcefully slammed into Yi Qinghan's sea of knowledge, causing him to bleed from his 7 orifices. He coughed up blood incessantly, and his face twisted savagely. But in the midst of this thunder and lightning, a thick source of lightning shattered the void and descended from the heavens, almost swallowing Yi Qinghan's body. Yi Qinghan felt the aura of death. His body involuntarily tilted to the right, and the source of lightning just happened to smash into his left shoulder. The entire left side of his body lost all feeling. Both his physical body and soul were attacked at the same time, causing Yi Qinghan's situation to become even more difficult. Bang bang bang! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan had experienced death countless times. How could he be willing to be captured without putting up a fight? At this moment, he rolled on the ground, dodging the bombardment of the 5 elements sovereign technique. Swish swish swish! Yi Qinghan took control of his body and fled across the dead star, luring the 4 primordial sovereign successors deep into the depths of ravenous wolf. At this moment, his body was a bloody mess, and his eyes were covered. The Inferno clan's eyes could detect problems, but Yi Qinghan's strength could not solve the problem. His physical body could not keep up with his soul, and his soul could not keep up with his eyes. Roar! Yi Qinghan nearly transformed into a dragon and soared into the heavens. His body swept through the mountains and rivers as he transformed into a bolt of lightning that swam around ravenous wolf. He fled faster and faster, constantly changing directions as he tried to destroy them one by one. But the 4 of them were no fools. Their combined strength was far greater than their individual combat strength. If they fought Yi Qinghan alone, let alone killing Yi Qinghan would be lucky if they could even take him down with them. But once they joined forces, Yi Qinghan could only flee. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Thump thump thump! Yi Qinghan felt death approaching him like never before. His breathing quickened, and a suffocating sense of tension enveloped his heart. Bang! Boom, whoosh whoosh whoosh. Ka ka ka, the four experts charged through the air. Master God techniques shattered the void as they surrounded Yi Qinghan. The place where Yi Qinghan landed was directly blasted into smithereens. Hua! Yi Qinghan constantly twisted and turned, changing directions just to buy more time. His peripheral vision wandered around some mountain rocks, relying on the hard rocks to help him resist the calamity of death. Behind them, the two god generals were not weak to begin with. They were also in their fourth states, so their combat strength was no different from a stage 3 emperor's successor. Their divine weapons and divine personas were ancient inheritances. At this moment, they were firmly entangled with Yi Qinxing and Chu Shijun. The battle between the four experts was practically a battle of life and death. At this moment, stalling for time was akin to courting death. This was because no one knew who would be the final victor after Yi Qinghan and the four primordial sovereign successors fought. Only by killing each other could they help their own people. Although Chu Shijun wielded the malevolent imperial sword, his natal sword unleashed its strongest combat strength. Sword light wandered. It was unstoppable. Above the Jiangnan Immortal Valley, a sword light tore through the clouds and returned to an ancient building in the Immortal Valley. In the ancient hall, Jian Qinshu formed seals with both hands as a cold aura spread out. The immemorial yin-yang jade had been refined by her. Her unconscious cultivation of the immemorial yin-yang sword technique had caused the immemorial yin-yang sword to leave Yi Qinghan and return to Jian Qinshu's hands. Boom! The immemorial yin-yang sword stabbed into the ground, not far away from Jian Qinshu. It did not awaken, nor did it leave. It seemed to have acknowledged Jian Qinshu. Jian Qinshu was startled awake from her cultivation. Some time ago, Yi Qinghan had taken the immemorial yin-yang sword and left without saying anything. Now that the immemorial yin-yang sword had returned, but Yi Qinghan had not returned. Her heart sank as she stared at the immemorial yin-yang sword and asked anxiously, "Where is my husband?" The immemorial yin-yang sword did not reply. It was still in a suppressed state. Jian Qinshu could not pull out the sword and remove the seal. It was ultimately a sealed number 1 immemorial emperor sword and could not be of much use. Even if it could pull out the sword on its own, it could only unleash the power of an ordinary emperor sword. Say something. Aren't you the strongest immemorial emperor weapon? How can you not have your own will? Jian Qinshu asked anxiously. The immemorial yin-yang sword did not do anything. It was only responsible for its inheritor. As for Yi Qinghan, it would not interfere at all. At this moment, perhaps it was because Yi Qinghan's death aura was so strong that it alarmed his spiritual pets. The star-twisting vine and the god-devouring eagle were restless. Especially Supreme Yi, who was startled awake, was breathing rapidly. He felt as though he was about to die. Damn! Boss is born. Whoosh! Supreme Yi rushed out of the valley and beat the war drum. All the experts of Crazed Manor rushed out in shock. Even Jingfan Mountain Lord was startled awake. What happened? Jingfan Mountain Lord frowned as she saw that the experts of Crazed Manor were not around. Even the District Lord did not appear. She immediately asked in a deep voice, "My boss is born. I feel like I'm going to die too. Hurry up and find him." Supreme Yi roared and scanned the surroundings. However, he could not sense Yi Qinghan's aura at all. They were too far away. Yi Qinghan was now on a dead star in the depths of the universe, but he was in the Void Ridge. Fan Yin immediately performed the star 8 trigrams arithmetic. In just a moment, a ray of light rushed into the depths of the universe. The divination was extremely ominous. "He's in the depths of the universe," Fan Yin immediately reminded. Whoosh! Jingfan Mountain Lord did not hesitate. She ascended to the sky and said, "All of you stay here. You won't be able to make up for anything that can threaten Sect Master Ye's life. Moreover, the immemorial Death Star is not as simple as you think." Whoosh! the Mount Jingfan Mountain Lord vanished without a trace in the blink of an eye. She rapidly plunged into the depths of the cosmos. Radiance flickered as she looked at the starry radiance bursting in the depths of the cosmos. It was completely different from the galaxy from before. She knew that Yi Qinghan was there. Chapter 2684. There was no one on the dead star of the ravenous wolf throne. Only 9 Supremes were fighting. It was a ghastly sight. The ground was stained with blood. The smooth stones had no edges and blood flowed down. In a battle between supreme beings, no one could escape unscathed. Yi Chenxing was like this, Chu Shijun Xian was like this, the archaic Master God's inheritance was like this, and Yi Qinghan, the Yen clan's inheritor, was also like this. The divine general was in an even more miserable state. His divine armor was torn apart, and his clothes were tattered and tattered. His body seemed to have exploded, becoming a bloody mess. If Yi Qinghan didn't have hundreds of wounds on his body, there were at least dozens of them. Every wound was covered in blood. His long legs had been slashed by a sword, and his handsome face had been pierced with several scars. He looked even more savage and ruthless. Yi Qinghan and the other 4 experts had already distanced themselves from the divine generals and Yi Chenxing. They shuttled back and forth on the endless ravenous wolf throne. Sometimes they would come across a huge pit, and sometimes they would come across an insurmountable mountain range. They were all smooth stones without any support. Yi Qinghan didn't want to fight at all. Kings didn't meet kings, and supremes didn't meet each other. Because their fighting power was similar, if they fought, it would basically be mutual destruction. However, the other party had 4 supremes. He couldn't do it alone. He could win against 1 alone, and he could even fight against 2. 4 supremes against 1. How could he fight? Boom! Bang! Yi Qinghan relied on the Yen ancestor's eyes and right arm to resist several months of fighting. He retreated as he fought. At this moment, his fist landed on the iron fist of the Supremes. His body flew backward involuntarily, and blood splattered across the sky. In the blink of an eye, he was sucked into the rock by the terrifying gravity. He flowed along the rock and became a string of blood beads. Defeat had already appeared, and there was no way to reverse the situation. Without the help of experts to disperse the supremes of the 4 Master God inheritances, Yi Qinghan would definitely lose. Xiao. Yi Qinghan was injured, but his survival instinct was still gradually increasing. He glanced around and used his astral soul to mobilize the power of the stars on the ravenous wolf throne. He was fighting like a trapped beast. A few days later, Yi Qinghan found a huge pit. It was bumpy inside, and there were even some stone houses. Human ruins. These houses made of stone were huge. They had doors and windows. It was impossible for them to be formed naturally. This meant that there were traces of human activity. These human traces might not necessarily be the natives of this voracious wolf giant dead star. It was possible that the Flame clansmen had fled to this place and endured countless years of loneliness, enduring the baptism of countless years of wild winds. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan slid into the deep pit, trying to find a way out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The 4 of them chased after him closely. The distance between them was less than 3 to 5 miles. A single attack from them could tear the space apart and kill him directly. Yi Qinghan, it doesn't feel good to be trapped like a beast. Dao Master roared. He was the one who wanted to kill Yi Qinghan the most right now. Whoosh! 4 figures spread their wings like giant rocks, diving into the bottomless pit from the sky. This place was like a dried-up sea. The deeper they went, the deeper they could not see the bottom. The coast was like a staircase that led deeper and deeper. Yi Qinghan used stellar transposition. He glanced at the 4 people behind him from the corner of his eyes. As he fled, he replied forcefully, "We'll talk about it if you can kill me. Don't let me seize the opportunity today." Otherwise, none of you will live. Boom, boom, boom. His voice reverberated in the deep pit for a long time. There were even some strange sounds coming from the depths of the pit. It sounded like ancient creatures. The sound was incomparably mournful and made one shudder. However, Yi Qinghan did not care at all. It would be best if some ancient creatures came out. At least he would have some chance of survival. He was just afraid that this dead star was truly a dead star. There was not even a single living creature. Boom! Yi Qinghan tore through the mountain rocks and created a few fulcrum points. Yi Qinghan stepped on the fulcrum points and moved through the air, constantly leaving the four primordial chief gods' heirs behind as the distance between them widened. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The martial Tao master displayed the limits of his martial art. In this desperate situation, he gradually left the other three primordial master god inheritors behind. When Yi Qinghan saw this, not only was he not nervous, he was even a little happy. I'm not afraid that you won't chase after me. I'm just afraid that the four of you are evenly matched. None of you can shake each other off. Pa pa pa. Yi Qinghan shuttled through some ancient stone houses. Then, he rushed out of the windows. There were only some tables and chairs in these ancient stone houses. They had been abandoned for many years. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The martial Tao master relied on his cultivation level that was higher than Yi Qinghan's by a small realm to chase after him. If he could kill Yi Qinghan today, he would definitely become an emperor. No one could stop him. The ancient heavenly emperor was no exception. The martial Tao master's determination to become an emperor spread everywhere. Boom! He punched through a stone wall and blocked Yi Qinghan's path. Let's see where you can run to today. The martial Tao master looked at the wretched Yi Qinghan. The ferocious glint in his eyes was like that of a hunter hunting its prey. With a mocking smile, he kept forming seals with his palms and displayed the limits of his martial arts. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Martial Tao heavenly descent. Boom! The primordial lord's divine might was vast and mighty. A palm print descended from the sky and shattered the order of the wind. Everything would bow down to the palm. Yi Qinghan glanced behind him. There were still dozens of miles between them. The three of them had no chance to launch a sneak attack. He put away the berserk hammer. The flame ancestor's right arm shot out endless human Tao power. He punched at the palm print with devastating force. Boom! Tens of thousands of fist shadows clashed against the ever-changing heavenly descent master god technique. In an instant, the mountain rocks crumbled and dust rose up. Endless terrifying sounds came from the huge pit, as if an ancient creature was crawling out from the abyss. Woo 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 woo, strange sounds reverberated, and even the sound of whips could be heard from the depth. However, the two of them did not care. Instead, they became more courageous as they fought. Fist after fist met countless palm prints. Blood kept falling into the abyss. In an instant, they had unleashed thousands of palm print. Die. Bang bang bang. Boom. The two of them attacked each other with similar moves. Their long legs kicked each other, smashing into each other's necks. The two of them were sent flying far away, crashing into a huge rock. Their hands were like tentacles, sticking to the rock, afraid that they would fall into the abyss. Smack! Yi Qinghan somersaulted and rushed up the stairs. He fled along the abyss. Blood flowed from the corner of the supreme martial Tao heavenly master's mouth. His neck was almost cut off by Yi Qinghan. His ferocious gaze was filled with killing intent. He exerted force in his right hand and broke free from the abyss's shackles. He rose into the air and chased after them. By now, Yi Qinghan could no longer suppress his wounds. This fourth-degree realm primordial god's successor's close combat ability was even slightly superior to his. It wasn't easy for him to hold on until now. Thud thud thud. Thud thud thud. Yi Qinghan clutched his chest and ran. The wind behind him swept past his head. He hurriedly lowered his head and dodged the supreme martial Tao heavenly master's attack. His body flipped and he almost fell into the endless abyss. Whoosh! The abyss was so deep that one could not see the bottom. It was creepy. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and changed direction to rush out of the abyss. Suddenly, a cliff-like entrance appeared in his line of sight. There was only a faint light inside, but he could tell that there was an exit here. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan did not hesitate and rushed in. Once he entered, there were many branching paths. Yi Qinghan could follow the main path and rush in. He had to admit that the Supreme Martial Tao Heavenly Master was bold. He relied on his own cultivation and rushed in without waiting for the other three Supreme Martial Tao Heavenly Masters. Yi Qinghan only looked back and his lips curled into a sneer. "It's good that you're separated. Watch my performance from now on." Yi Qinghan roared in his heart. After being suppressed for such a long time, the anger in his heart had condensed into a substance. Behind them, Tao Master, Su Tianyao, and the Thunder Emperor were furious. They kept roaring, "Wu Qingkong, don't separate! He is deliberately leading you to separate from us." Unfortunately, the Supreme Martial Tao Heavenly Master looked down on Yi Qinghan. He was confident that he could kill this Yen clan inheritor. The two figures in front of them flashed and disappeared. Helpless, the three Supreme Martial Tao Heavenly Masters chased after them. They even tried to close the distance at all costs. The five Supreme Martial Tao Heavenly Masters entered the cliff-like cave. The deeper they went, the darker the light became. There were branches everywhere. If they were not careful, they could get lost in this cave. Without the primordial Lord God artifact, if they were lucky, they could come out alive. If they were unlucky, they could be lost forever. Chapter 2685. The Cave of Mysteries might have been formed naturally, or it might have been developed by humans to avoid natural or man-made disasters. Regardless of the method, this place was definitely not suitable for strangers to enter. Yi Qinghan was already on the brink of death. Why should he be afraid of death and rebirth? In the depths of the cave, there was no longer a distinction between major and minor paths. Instead, they were all similar branches. It was impossible to tell which path led to life and which led to death. In the endless depths of the cave, most of the paths led to the abyss without any support point. It was easy to fall into the abyss if one were to barge in recklessly. The gravity here was extremely strong. The slightest mistake would cause one to fall. Even flying would be impossible. However, there was a peaceful place where flowers and plants bloomed. It seemed to be a paradise of its own. This place was not destroyed by the astral winds outside. However, there were no traces of human activity. Weeds grew everywhere. This was the only place where Yi Qinghan did not know if he could make it out of this place. He was running around like a headless fly, constantly changing directions from one path to another. The Supreme Martial Artist's aura soared. The more he chased after Yi Qinghan, the more he wanted to fight. When he was not far behind Yi Qinghan, he smashed the pillar of the path with his palm and smashed it towards Yi Qinghan's back. Yi Qinghan stuck close to the wall and allowed the palm to break through the path. The wind roared, and it was as painful as a slap to the face. However, he reacted quickly and circled around to another path. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The two chased for a long time. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and hid his aura. He hid at the entrance of a path and clenched his right arm, waiting for Wu Qingkong's arrival. Thud, thud, thud. Wu Qingkong put on the Einherjar gloves and vigilantly scanned his surroundings. He kept approaching the path Yi Qinghan was in. The Einherjar gloves glowed with divine light. This was the Einherjar set that came with the quadrilateral cauldron. Its defensive power was insane. Wu Qingkong glanced at the paths around him. The Einherjar gloves emitted a strong divine aura. It seemed to be a warning, but it also seemed to be triggered by the aura of danger. Wu Qingkong was certain that Yi Qinghan was preparing to ambush him in the nearby paths. He could not help but sneer. He stuck close to the wall and moved slowly, trying his best to keep a certain distance from the turn. Thud! Boom! Just as Wu Qingkong was about to reach Yi Qinghan's hiding spot, a bright light suddenly erupted. Yi Qinghan had shattered the corner of the wall with a punch, aiming for Wu Qingkong's chest. Bang! Wu Qingkong's right fist, which was covered by his glove, was covered in flames from the friction as it fiercely collided with Yi Qinghan's right fist. Boom! Crack! Yi Qinghan's strength was unparalleled. Almost instantly, he defeated Wu Qingkong's attack. Wu Qingkong's right arm was smashed back into the rock, almost breaking his elbow. Bang bang bang! Yi Qinghan seized the opportunity to launch dozens of kicks. However, Wu Qingkong was not jealous and blocked all of them. Bang bang bang! Iron fists swung left and right, and long legs kicked at each other. They were as fast as lightning, and even their afterimages could not be seen. The two revealed ominous glints as their murderous auras soared to the sky. The surrounding rocks shattered and the tunnel collapsed, turning into a veritable tunnel of death. Some of the unconnected tunnels became interconnected, while some of the connected tunnels were blocked by rocks, completely cutting off the way back. Great divine abilities and master god techniques were unleashed in an extremely short period of time. Although it was difficult to exert even 1% of their power, the visual impact was even more terrifying. Wu Qingkong was suppressed in a narrow space, and could not exert his advantage. In the end, he gave up blocking after receiving more than 10 punches and kicked out fiercely. Almost at the same time, Yi Qinghan's kick landed on his chest. Bang! Both of them kicked each other in the chest at the same time. However, Yi Qinghan could fly backwards and reduce 30% of the force. On the other hand, Wu Qingkong was almost crippled by Yi Qinghan's kick. His chest caved in, and the rock behind him shattered. He was directly kicked into another tunnel. His internal organs were almost shattered, and he kept coughing up blood. Bang bang bang! Yi Qinghan's eyes were dazed by this kick. His body rubbed against the tunnel, causing flames to erupt from his body. He retreated dozens of steps and crashed into a rock. Rustle, rustle, rustle! The rock turned into fine powder and fell down. Yi Qinghan's legs lost their strength and he knelt on the ground. He covered the footprint on his chest and coughed out a large mouthful of blood. However, he immediately got up and rushed in the direction where Wu Qingkong fell. He punched indiscriminately into the collapsed rock. Boom! Rocks flew everywhere. Wu Qingkong, who was lying in a pool of blood, did not expect to make such a big mistake. He was seriously injured by Yi Qinghan and did not dare to resist after receiving another round of attack. In the end, he used the last of his strength to collide with Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan punched him in the head and injured his core. Buzz! Puff! The two of them attacked each other almost at the same time. Both of them flew diagonally and crashed into a rock in the distance. Their vision turned black and they both fainted. After a long time, Yi Qinghan was bleeding from his 7 orifices. His eyes were dyed red with blood and his fingertips were trembling. His soul was in extreme pain. His soul had been attacked more than 10 times in the past few days and his injuries had worsened. At this moment, he woke up before Wu Qingkong. Yi Qinghan was in so much pain that his entire body twitched. He curled up in a corner and did not struggle to stand up for a long time. This battle had almost cost him half of his life. I can't fall, Yi Qinghan roared. If he stood up, he would win. If he fell, Master Dao and the others would find him sooner or later. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan used the last of his strength as his astral souls gushed forth. It was as though he had fused together with this gigantic voracious wolf constellation. He could even sense this maze, the path of life and the path of death. This was the result of his final struggle. Bang! Thud, thud, thud! Yi Qinghan supported himself against the wall and stood up. He looked at the unconscious Wu Qingkong lying in a pool of blood, and the corner of his mouth raised into a proud smile. You still lost. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan came in front of Wu Qingkong and grabbed the unconscious Wu Qingkong. He no longer had the strength to attack, but he knew that the path ahead was a dead end, an abyss. Boom boom boom, Yi Qinghan carried Wu Qingkong to the end of the tunnel and threw him into the abyss. He roared, "From now on, the inheritance of martial arts is broken." Whoosh! Wu Qingkong's body fell rapidly. For a long time, there was no sound of him falling. It was clear how terrifying this abyss was. The first Archean Master God's successor had lost. The result of defeat was death. If Yi Qinghan had lost, his death would have been even more miserable. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and spat out the blood in his mouth. He looked at the abyss ferociously and said with a hoarse voice, "If you still don't die after this, I will kill you again in the future." Yi Qinghan leaned against the stone wall. He truly had no strength to personally kill an inheritor of a primordial main god, especially one with such a monstrous fleshly body. At this moment, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was completely exhausted. Earlier, when he fused with his astral soul, all the information he received had vanished. However, he still had a rough idea of the path to survival. Thud thud thud, Yi Qinghan supported himself against the wall and quickly left the battlefield. Less than an hour later, Tao Master and the others caught up. They looked at the bloody battlefield and the ruined tunnel and followed the direction of Yi Qinghan's blood. His blood and vitality have not been extinguished. He left this place less than an hour ago. Judging from his faint blood and vitality, he probably does not have much longer to live. Tao Master chased while touching Yi Qinghan's blood. With just a light touch, he sensed that the 5 elements in Yi Qinghan's blood and vitality were unstable. This was the best time to kill Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's vision was blurry. The tunnel in front of him was shaking and overlapping. His will was on the verge of collapse. Killing an Archean Master God's successor seemed easy, but he had already given his all. Furthermore, Wu Qingkong was 1 level higher than him. It was definitely a fluke that he was able to survive. He also relied on the terrain here. If it was another place, the one who would die today would not be Wu Qingkong, but Yi Qinghan. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Thud thud thud. Yi Qinghan kept wiping the blood from the corner of his eyes with his clothes, hoping to see the path clearly. However, his pursuers gave him an endless aura of death. His heart was about to explode from the pressure. Damn it! If I knew this would happen, I would have brought a godly pet. Yi Qinghan breathed out a mouthful of turbid air. He glanced at the path he came from and could only grit his teeth and change direction. However, he could not stop the blood. The blood would still lead the way for Tao Master and the others. Chapter 2686. In the depths of the Milky Way, a figure sped forward and landed on this huge dead star after spending several months. Jingfan Mountain Lord swept past the battlefield of Yi Qingxing and the others. She pushed back an ancient divine general's inheritor and asked, "Where is heaven's suppressing marquis?" Huff, dong, dong, dong. The 4 of them were almost exhausted. Chu Shijun's heart was about to explode. His eyes glowed red as he roared, "In the depths. He has been surrounded by 4 ancient divine generals' inheritors for several months. Don't worry about us. Go save him, whoosh, whoosh." Jingfan Mountain Lord didn't even think about it and didn't interfere in the battle. Chu Shijun had already gained the upper hand and crippled that divine general. Yi Qingxing's sword also pierced through the chest of the divine general that she pushed back. There was no need for her to interfere. She was racing against time. She might have been able to save Yi Qinghan even if she arrived half a step earlier. Just as Jingfan Mountain Lord left, Yi Qingxing and Chu Shijun both unleashed their strongest powers and fought with all their might. They each shattered the bodies of 2 divine generals and their godheads. Whoosh! The godheads carried the souls of the 2 divine generals' inheritors and fled. They disappeared into the void in the blink of an eye and rushed into the depths of the universe. It would take tens of thousands of years for them to recover and come back. Puff! Yi Qinxing and Chu Shijun spat out a mouthful of essence blood. They didn't have time to think and directly rushed into the depth. Yi Qinghan and the 4 experts had been fighting for several months. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Only true supremes knew that a battle between experts was shocking. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. Not to mention that Yi Qinghan was fighting 1 against 4 supremes of the same level. None of them were weaker. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stepped out of the maze cave. His eyes were cloudy, and he was a little dizzy from the sudden light. He almost fell. Once out of the cave of mysteries, Yi Qinghan used up the last of his strength to shatter the passageway. He came in with a single punch, cutting off his own escape route as well as the pursuit of Dao Master and the others. Boom! Boom! Whoosh! 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 The tunnel collapsed continuously. Smoke and dust surged into the various tunnels. Boom! Yi Qinghan threw out this punch, and his body fell straight back, heavily landing on the wild grass. There was actually a lot of spirit chi in this place, and it seemed like this place did not belong to the same space as the dead star outside. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's mind was in a daze. He did not have any consciousness at all. All he wanted was to survive. He wanted to stand up, but his body was no longer listening to him. Inside the cave of Labyrinth, the 3 experts were continuously pushed back by the collapsed tunnel. Their expressions changed and their anger soared. Yi Qinghan should be nearby. Clean up the passageway. There should be some traces of blood left, Dao Master growled. In the dark maze of mysteries, there was no light at all. All the entrances had been sealed. The 3 great supremes immediately took on the role of movers, and continuously cleared the passageways deeper into the abyss. However, Yi Qinghan's bloodstains had already been smashed away, so they would often clear in the wrong direction. It was only when they had cleared the abyss that they would return to another passageway and start over again. It would take at least 7 or 8 days to completely clear a passageway. There were at least dozens of passageways nearby, and it would take at least half a year to completely clear all of them. Even if they cleared the correct path in advance, it would still take several months. The 3 experts were flustered and exasperated. That bastard Wu Qingkong, he can't do anything right. Who knows where Yi Qinghan has left him? He hasn't shown up even now. Could he be dead? Impossible. Wu Qingkong is 1 level higher than us. Even if he can't kill Yi Qinghan, he can at least injure both of them. It will be harder for Yi Qinghan to kill him. The 3 discussed while clearing the passageway. What they said was reasonable, but they neglected the fact that this environment was not suitable for fighting. Yi Qinghan had escaped so many calamities. If he did not have some real ability, how could he have survived until now? This narrow space was suitable for Yi Qinghan to live in, and it was also suitable for him to fight. Therefore, it was normal for Wu Qingkong to be defeated. 3 months later, Yi Qinghan, who had been in a coma for a long time, finally woke up. His whole body was in pain as if it was being torn apart. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were displaced, and he was covered in wounds. His left arm was almost broken, and the left side of his body was almost crippled. He did not even have 10% of his combat strength left. Ah! Yi Qinghan roared in despair. He had never felt such pain and despair before. He could not even see the slightest sign of life. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan tried to move his right hand. It was almost numb, and the strength he could use was very little. At this moment, his hair was sticky, his blood had congealed, and his clothes were tattered. Even a beggar or refugee would not be as miserable as he was now. Not a single part of him was unharmed. Crack, crack, crack! Yi Qinghan slowly knelt on the ground. He struggled to stand up, but his whole body felt like it was falling apart. His hair, which was stuck together by blood, was disheveled. He looked like a ferocious demon. He roared softly, but his voice was completely different. There was no human emotion, just like an ancient beast. Crack, crack, crack. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes that were almost glued together. The world in front of him was groggy. His body was swaying, and he could fall at any time. However, there were clear sounds coming from the maze cave behind him. It was obvious that the other party had caught up. If he were to face the three supreme martial artists in this state, he would probably be beaten to a pulp. Phew! Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He shook his head violently and fell to the ground. However, he quickly stood up and said self-deprecatingly, "I can't believe that I, Yi Qinghan, can't even stand properly. What a joke!" Huff, huff, huff. After falling, he became much more clear-headed. Yi Qinghan saw the rocks in the maze cave shaking behind him. He did not dare to hesitate any longer and immediately took to his heels. At this moment, the Jingfan mountain master had just entered the maze cave. He was at least a month or two away from Yi Qinghan, Tao Master, and the others. This was under the condition that he could find the right path. If he could not find the right path, he would not be able to catch up with them in this lifetime. Yi Qinghan did not know that the Jingfan mountain master had already caught up with him. However, he could not care less. He could not hold on for a few more months with Tao Master and the others. He could not hold on for even a day. If he could not escape today, he would be buried here for the rest of his life. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Yi Qinghan's speed became faster and faster. Looking at this paradise, he realized that this was a subsidiary plane of the Greedy Wolf Star. Moreover, it was relatively large. He had stepped into it by chance. However, Yi Qinghan was a little puzzled. Why did the main planet perish? Why did the masters in the subsidiary plane die as well? After traveling for more than 10 days, Yi Qinghan did not see a single intelligent creature. There were only ancient weeds and green vines. The forest covered the sky and the sun. There were only a few low-level beasts. Where did the intelligent creatures go? Such a large subsidiary plane is of a much higher level than the land of the 9 prefectures. How could it not give birth to intelligent creatures? Yi Qinghan found a river to clean up. He cleaned up all the blood and dirt on his body and relaxed a little. However, he still did not dare to stop running. It was obvious that the 3 masters behind him were getting closer and closer. Swoosh, swoosh. Tao Master, Thunder Emperor, and Su Tianyao were patrolling in the sky. They were getting closer and closer to Yi Qinghan. They had gathered endless divine power and were waiting for Yi Qinghan to appear and give him a fatal blow. Yi Qinghan hid in the sky above an ancient tree and observed. When he saw that they were speeding towards his direction, he immediately jumped down from the ancient tree and rushed towards the depths of the subsidiary plane in search of the next survival point. However, a subsidiary plane was still a subsidiary plane. It was not as large as the Greedy Wolf Star. In just half a month, they reached the end. Further in was a shattered alternate space. However, there was a boundary stone at the edge of the alternate space. However, the words on the boundary stone were too ancient. Yi Qinghan did not recognize what it was. Found it, roar! Boom! At this time, Tao Master and the others finally found Yi Qinghan's trail. They instantly attacked together. Divine power flooded the end. Divine light covered the mountains and rivers. Countless ancient plants were shattered into nothingness. Yi Qinghan did not dare to hesitate. He immediately used his divine power and forced his way through the boundary stone into a space-time tunnel. The stars moved and he disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Chapter 2687. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan shuttled through spacetime. That boundary steel didn't seem to lead to a small plane or a small world. Instead, it was a boundary steel for shuttling through space-time. He shuttled for an unknown amount of time without stopping. Behind them, in order to pursue, the three Supremes didn't even think before rushing in through the boundary steels. The four shooting stars shuttled through this spacetime for a long time before finally appearing on a dark star. Everything was dim and lightless, as if it was a huge moon that never received light energy. Boom! Yi Qinghan was the first to descend on this huge planet. He discovered that it wasn't that there weren't any stars in the distance that emitted heat and light. Instead, there were restrictions on this planet that isolated some great daos and laws. The planet couldn't absorb energy or emit light. Therefore, everything here was dim and lightless. This planet was a planet with life. This place suppressed the inheritors of the primordial gods. Yi Qinghan immediately sensed two problems. However, even if this place suppressed the strength of the three Supremes, it still didn't have much effect. He was heavily injured and didn't have time to recover, but the three Supremes were basically unharmed. Huff huff huff, Yi Qinghan exhaled a turbid breath and looked back at the sky. The space-time was still distorted. The other party was clearly about to descend. Swoosh, 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 Yi Qinghan directly rushed into the depths of this huge dark planet. He discovered that there were humans everywhere. They were similar to ordinary people and had ordinary bloodlines. Only their eyes were dark. Their cultivation wasn't bad, but it seemed that they still had a long way to go before reaching the big boss realm. Dong 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 whoosh, Yi Qinghan clutched his chest and hurried forward. Dark eyes stared at him from all directions, as if they were curious about where this different human came from. However, Yi Qinghan didn't have time to inquire about these people. Bursts of fiery light came from the sky and turned into three shooting stars that collided with this huge dark moon. Boom! The moment the three Supremes landed, they discovered the problem. This is the Dark Moon planet. That boundary steel teleported us to the Dark Moon planet. The expressions of the three experts changed greatly, as if they knew the origin of this dark moon star. Oh no, this is a place abandoned by the immortals and gods. A forbidden spell has been cast on this place. It's a forbidden area for us. Our strength will be suppressed by 30%. However, we don't know if the Dark Moon clan has any experts. If they intervene in our fight against Yi Qinghan, our mission will fail, the Thunder Emperor said in a deep voice. Dao Master's eyes flashed fiercely and he said immediately, "Let's end this quickly. Don't give the Dark Moon clan a chance to intervene." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The three experts leaped into the air and chased after Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Boom! The three experts unleashed their sovereign techniques from afar, wreaking havoc everywhere. They didn't care about the safety of the humans here at all, and they flattened quite a few small tribes. Yi Qinghan fled in panic. His eyes flashed as he searched for a place of survival. After fleeing for more than 10 days, he finally saw an ancient and majestic city. Let's hope that there are experts in this city to intercept the three supreme martial artists. Yi Qinghan rushed in without hesitation. Even the guards didn't stop him. The guards were stunned for a moment. When they looked behind them, a ray of light energy broke the order and rushed toward Deqing. Enemy attack! Woo woo woo! The horn of war was quickly blown. It shook the heavens and the earth, and the city gate was quickly closed. Boom! Su Tianya's attack directly hit the city gate, killing dozens of people. However, the city gate's defense wasn't reopened. Instead, the defensive formation was activated. Ah! Puff! Dozens of people screamed and flew backward. Their faces were pale. The souls of several people who were blocking the city gate were actually shaken to death. Whoosh! A powerful aura was awakened and rushed into the sky. The world suddenly became dark. The pressure covered the sky and the sun. A figure appeared on the city wall. He raised his hand and covered thousands of miles. A palm fell from the sky and slammed toward the three experts. Dark Moon Imperial Family. The inheritor of the ancient god Master God. The expert standing on the city wall, Dao Master, Su Tianyao, and the Thunder Emperor said in surprise almost at the same time. Obviously, they didn't expect the other party to appear in front of them. The three of you really don't want to take the path to heaven. Instead, you come to hell. The eyes of the Dark Moon Imperial family were completely black. It was similar to the power controlled by the underworld divine general. However, they were not of the same type. You are abandoned by the gods and deities. You have no faith in your heart. You are already lucky to be able to live until now without being wiped out. If you still don't repent, the three of us will completely destroy the Dark Moon Imperial family today. Dao Master threatened. The eyes of the Dark Moon Imperial family elder were completely black. The power on his body was completely compatible with the power of the Dark Moon Star. They were borrowing the power of the Dark Moon Star to display their divine ability. At this moment, a hint of killing intent flashed through his eyes. He waved his big hand and a ray of light soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, it exploded in the sky. Not good, he is asking for help. Open the city gate by force. Boom! The three supreme martial artists joined forces to attack the city gate. The Dark Moon Imperial family elder shook, and was about to shatter at any moment. The Dark Moon Imperial family elder opened his hands. A dark energy surged out from the depths of the earth and enveloped the entire city. The city was completely plunged into darkness. Yi Qinghan couldn't even see his own fingers. However, the people on the Dark Moon Imperial family elder weren't affected at all. Their eyes could still see things in the dark. Moreover, they could see very far. Bang! Yi Qinghan was running around in the dark environment. After a while, he bumped into someone. Ouch! A person was sent flying by Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan was already seriously injured. After being hit like this, he couldn't take it anymore. He spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated a few steps. Ouch, it hurts. Young miss, are you okay? Hey, are you blind? Why are you running around? Didn't you see my young miss? A few crisp voices shouted angrily. There was even a gust of wind approaching. It was obvious that the other party was angry and was about to attack. Although Yi Qinghan couldn't see, it didn't mean that he couldn't sense the wind. Therefore, he twisted his body and successfully dodged the attacks of several people. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Yi Qinghan kept changing his footstep. He quickly explained, I'm sorry, I'm not from here. I didn't adapt to the dark environment in a short time. Therefore, I offended everyone. Please forgive me. Wait, his eyes aren't dark. He really isn't from our Dark Moon Imperial family. The young miss who was bumped into immediately stopped the attacks of several female guards. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His expression was extremely ugly. If there wasn't a suitable place to cultivate, he might die here today. He immediately said, This Marquis didn't mean to barge into this place. I also didn't mean to offend everyone. Please forgive me. You're still alive after suffering such serious injuries. What kind of monster are you? Yi Qinghan couldn't see this group of people. However, this group of people stared at Yi Qinghan and judged him as a monster. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly and shook his head. He activated the Blazing Ancestor's eyes to see clearly. However, the Blazing Ancestor's eyes consumed a lot of energy. At this moment, he lacked energy. Therefore, he didn't dare to open his eyes for a long time. When he saw that several good-looking women were looking at him curiously, he knew that they didn't have any hostility. Fairies, I'm also a human. I'm not a monster. I wonder if I can use some resources to exchange for your help? Yi Qinghan probed. Chapter 2688. Yi Qinghan took out a large number of treasures, each of which was priceless. Many of them were treasures that didn't exist on the Dark Moon planet. There were also some decorations that were used to coax women. These were originally prepared for his women, but for the sake of survival, he didn't hesitate to use them to move the hearts of these women. For this young lady to have several powerful female guards, her status was definitely not simple. She was experienced and knowledgeable. When she saw that Yi Qinghan took out items that were enough to nurture a superfamily, she immediately signaled the few people around her with her eyes and whispered, "Take him away from here." The few female guards escorted Yi Qinghan away from the street and quickly entered the vicinity of some ancient palaces along the empty street. At this moment, most people were attracted by the three supreme experts attacking the city. Who would pay attention to Yi Qinghan? Therefore, Yi Qinghan was easily brought to the interior of one of the ancient palaces. The ancient palaces were intertwined, and several courtyards were located on the mountain peak. You guys didn't see anything. If anyone dares to gossip, don't blame me for being impolite. The young lady was very beautiful, but she was also very dignified. Her words made the few female guards not dare to raise their heads. Understood, young lady. The few female guards nodded and said, "Stay here. I'll be right down." The beautiful young lady signaled the few female guards with her eyes and brought Yi Qinghan to a courtyard on the mountain peak alone. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The beautiful young lady pulled Yi Qinghan and flew quickly. It was as if she was dragging him along. Her speed was very fast. This young lady's cultivation was estimated to be at the mid-stage of the mystic immortal realm. My name is Sunyu. This courtyard is where I cultivate. How long will it take for you to repair it? Are the people attacking the city related to you? Sunyu arrived at the courtyard on the mountain peak and looked at the pale Yi Qinghan and asked in a serious voice. Yi Qinghan didn't hide anything and nodded. Those three people are my enemies. I only need half a year. As long as this city can be defended for half a year, I will help you deal with them when I come out of seclusion. Sunyu was a smart person. Using the city's defense to help his people earn resources, why not? Alright, half a year. If we delay any longer, the resources will have to be doubled, Sunyu said very seriously. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. He had given Sunyu enough resources to develop the sect for 1,000 years, but this girl was still not satisfied. However, for the sake of his life, he had to endure it. Sure. If you don't come out in half a year, I'll give you another batch of resources, Yi Qinghan said with certainty. Sunyu nodded and left the mountain peak courtyard in satisfaction, returning to her ancient clan. Yi Qinghan did not dare to waste any time. He quickly went into seclusion in his room, devouring a large amount of resources and forming seals to heal his injured body. Outside the city, the three experts had almost shattered the city's barrier. More than 300 guards were killed or injured. The expert from the Dark Moon Imperial family had an ugly look on his face. Reinforcements had not arrived yet. If the defensive barrier was shattered by the three Lord God's inheritors, there might not be anyone left alive in the city. Hand over the people who just escaped into the city, and I'll give the Dark Moon Imperial family some space to live. Otherwise, this will be the time when the Dark Moon Imperial family is completely wiped out, Dao Master said as he attacked. Boom boom boom. Bolts of lightning struck down, illuminating the city that had fallen into darkness. The huge city fell into panic, as if the apocalypse had arrived. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! In the distance, several figures were rushing over from all directions. They were the top experts of the Dark Moon Imperial family. Phew, the city's guards finally heaved a sigh of relief. Their aura was bursting, and they wanted to kill the three people. Boom! The experts rushing over all had dark purple wings. They swooped down from the sky, and their palm prints blasted toward the three experts. Boom boom boom! Bang bang bang! The 6 experts were unstoppable. They joined forces and attacked from all directions. Dao Master and the other 2 experts shattered the palm prints in an even more powerful manner. The sound of the great way continued to rumble, and it directly hit the sea of consciousness of an expert who was rushing over, causing him to cough up blood and fly backward. The 6 people were all experts of the Dark Moon Imperial family. However, one of them died tragically without even being able to withstand a single blow. Ants, how dare you go against the ancient god's bloodline? I think you want to wipe out your clan. The Thunder Emperor was high above. He mobilized the source of thunder and lightning to form a sword of thunder and lightning. It easily broke through the defense of an expert and sent the second expert of the Dark Moon Imperial family flying. Boom! The expert on the city wall was enraged. He rushed out forcefully and joined forces with the other 4 experts to attack the 3 people. Bang bang bang! Boom! The 5 experts of the Dark Moon Imperial family covered the sky with their wings. They exploded with thunderous anger and attacked crazily. The wings of the Dark Moon Imperial family were releasing destructive power, stirring up the general situation outside the city. The darkness became thicker and thicker, and it spread to thousands of miles away. Everything fell into darkness, but the experts of the Dark Moon Imperial family could see clearly as if it was daytime. Dao Master and the other 2 experts could only rely on lightning to tear the darkness apart. However, their reaction speed was far inferior to the Dark Moon Imperial families, and they were forced to retreat. The reinforcements of the Dark Moon Imperial family were increasing, but most of them were experts of the mystic immortal realm. They could fight against ordinary people, but they were weak against the inheritors of the 3 main gods. Hundreds of experts became cannon fodder, but they were of no use. Kill! The experts of the Dark Moon Imperial family came forward one after another just to give the Imperial family experts a chance to kill the inheritors of the 3 main gods. Blood dyed the outside of the city red, but the 3 experts were also forced to retreat dozens of miles away. Although the 3 experts were suppressed, their combat power was even more ferocious. They killed without blinking, and they kept attacking the city guards of the Big Brother realm. About a month later, the strongest expert of the Imperial family of the Dark Moon Imperial family appeared. He was an expert in the 4th form, Heavenly Lord Dark Moon. He looked at the countless casualties of the Dark Moon Imperial family outside the city, and anger surged from the bottom of his heart. He waved his hand, and an ancient ancestral device appeared in his hand. It was the Ring of the Dark Moon. It was also known as the Ring of Revenge. Ancient God Clan, I'm going to kill you today. Heavenly Lord Dark Moon was burning with anger. He held the Ring of the Dark Moon and drew an arc with his hands. The Ring of the Dark Moon formed countless shadows. Boom! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The Ring of the Dark Moon swallowed the mountains and rivers, and the power of darkness swarmed out like the roaring mountains and rivers. It broke the void and smashed toward the 3 experts. Boom! Bang! The 3 experts joined forces to use the main god technique to attack the Ring of the Dark Moon. The 4 attacks collided, and flames soared into the sky, tearing the darkness apart. The mountains and rivers were agitated, and the aftermath swept toward the ancient city wall. The earth collapsed, and the deep abyss swallowed dozens of experts of the Dark Moon Imperial family. Boom boom boom! Boom! The 4 experts coughed up blood and flew backward at the same time. The strongest expert of the Dark Moon Imperial family hit the city wall directly, and the enchantment was shattered. Dao Master and the other 2 retreated hundreds of steps. Their faces were distorted, and it seemed that they were not in a good condition. The cultivation of the 3 experts was suppressed by 30%, but they were still powerful. They crossed their feet and shattered the earth. They forcibly controlled their bodies, and their faces were full of murderous intent. You're courting death. You want to be exterminated for an outsider. Su Tianya threatened. Heavenly Venerable Dark Moon didn't know why the 3 of them would attack the city. However, the relationship between the Dark Moon clan and the 3 ancient gods wasn't good. Therefore, she said coldly, I think you are the ones who are courting death. You actually came to the habitat of our Dark Moon clan. Don't you know that your ancestors once drove us to the deepest part of the universe? Our hatred has existed since ancient times. Your intrusion here is a God-given opportunity for us to take revenge. Chapter 2689. Heavenly Lord Darkmoon was burning with anger. In terms of cultivation, he was already the strongest in the Darkmoon clan. If he couldn't withstand the attacks of the three Supremes, he might really be annihilated by the three of them today. Revenge. The Darkmoon clan also wanted revenge. Back then, the immortals and gods abandoned the Darkmoon clan and drove them out of the ancient immortal world. They didn't even leave the subsidiary planes of the ancient immortal world. If the Darkmoon clan didn't choose to retreat to the depths of the universe, they would have ended up like the Yen clan. The customs and advantages of the Darkmoon clan were different from the ancient immortals and ancient gods. The ancient gods and ancient immortals weren't used to the darkness and even hated it. The key was that the Darkmoon clan didn't choose to submit like the Yen clan. They didn't believe, didn't pay tribute, and didn't submit. That year, they were beaten very badly. Otherwise, they wouldn't have retreated to the depths of the universe. Coincidentally, Yi Qinghan accidentally found the spacetime boundary stone left behind by the Darkmoon clan when they migrated and was sent here. Otherwise, the Darkmoon clan would only be a legendary existence. People now wouldn't be able to come in contact with this clan. Because the Darkmoon clan wanted revenge, they also bought time for Yi Qinghan to recover. Hua! Heavenly Lord Darkmoon frowned and stared at the three of them. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He said coldly, Anfeng and Yun, you two are in charge of restraining the Great Tao Inheritor and 5 Elements Inheritor. Leave this Lightning Inheritor to me. Yes. The old man from the city and the other third-degree realm expert nodded their heads resolutely as they spoke. Kill. 2 third-degree realm top exponents working together with 10 over second-degree realm top exponents to deal with 2 third-degree realm sovereigns was simply sending their lives away. However, they didn't turn back. For glory, for revenge. Hua! The wings of darkness unfurled, and dozens of experts flew into the sky and burrowed into the ground. They worked together to suppress all the light rays, and the sky was blotted out. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. The great Tao of 5 elements and the origin of lightning were suppressed, and the battle prowess of the 3 Supremes was suppressed once again. Boom! Heavenly Lord Darkmoon used the strongest move of the Darkmoon clan. He used the Dark Moon Ring to forcibly separate the 3 Supremes and kill the Thunder Emperor alone. Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua. Ka ka ka. Streaks of lightning tore apart the Dark Moon's power as they clashed with Empyrean Dark Moon. Blood dyed the earth red. The two of them were evenly matched, but compared to An Yun and An Feng, their situation was extremely miserable. Even if they were at the right time, place, and people, they still couldn't withstand the attacks of the 2 Supremes. The time shift was a ghastly sight. At this moment, Sun Yu was standing on the city wall with some regret. The Dark Moon clan must have suffered because of Yi Qinghan's arrival. Was it worth it to hide him for resources and cause the deaths of so many experts of the Dark Moon clan? It had been 3 months since Yi Qinghan went into seclusion. The Dark Moon clan had suffered a lot of casualties, but the reinforcements came one after another. The Dark Moon clan had a large number of experts, but there were too few 4th-degree experts. Other than the Dark Moon Crown Prince and the Patriarch, there was only Heavenly Lord Darkmoon. At the beginning, because the Thunder Emperor wasn't used to such an environment, he was suppressed by Empyrean Darkmoon. But 3 months later, the Thunder Emperor gradually took control of the situation. He crazily attacked, his swords of thunder shattering the void, beating Empyrean Darkmoon into a bloody mess. Her battle robes were torn apart by the source of thunder and her clothes were ragged. Defeat was already decided. Yi Qinghan was crazily devouring resources to heal his injured body. But this time, the injuries were too serious, especially his soul. It had been severely injured many times, and he was almost a half-dead person. After 3 months, his soul had only recovered to 40% of its peak strength, and his body was still in a half-crippled state. Even if he really managed to gather enough resources for half a year, he wouldn't be able to recover 70 to 80% of his peak strength. Boom! At this moment, Heavenly Lord Darkmoon was defeated. He coughed up blood, and the Dark Moon ring was beaten until it was dim. Retreat! Heavenly Lord Darkmoon ordered the Dark Moon clan to retreat and defend the main city. They once again used the barrier as a defense, hoping to resist the joint attack of the 3 Supremes. Tao Master and the others were burning with anger as time passed. They crazily attacked the city. The city was like duckweed in the sea that could be drowned by the chief god's power at any time. Damn it, if this continues, Yi Qinghan will definitely recover. It will take a lot of time to kill him. The Thunder Emperor said angrily. Dark Moon Clan, I will give you one more chance. Hand over the Yen clan member who escaped into the city, and we will spare your lives. Otherwise, there will be no more survivors on Dark Moon Planet. Tao Master's killing intent soared. He mobilized the 5 elements to tear apart the darkness and flew into the sky. He looked down at the people on the city wall and threatened coldly. Heavenly Lord Darkmoon knew there was a Yen clan member, but he didn't know that the Yen clan had been destroyed by the joint attack of the ancient gods and ancient immortals. Now, other than fighting to the death, he could only find Yi Qinghan and hand him over to the 3 Supremes. Perhaps they would leave after they succeeded. Search the entire city and find that person for me. Stall for time first. Perhaps we can wait for the Dark Moon Crown Prince and Patriarch to come and help. Heavenly Lord Darkmoon said in a deep voice. The Dark Moon Patriarch and the Dark Moon Crown Prince weren't in the Dark Moon Star. They had left for a long time. Now, the strongest person in the Dark Moon Star was the Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign. It was difficult for him to fight against the 3 sovereigns alone. Soon, a large number of Dark Moon clan guards appeared in the city. They wantonly searched for Yi Qinghan's whereabouts. Heavenly Lord Darkmoon said to Tao Master and the others, I can find that person and hand him over to you, but you must stop attacking now. Otherwise, even if we die together, you can forget about finding that person. Tao Master, Su Tianyao, and the Thunder Emperor looked at each other. After a short discussion, they decided to give Dark Moon Clan one day. One day, you only have one day. If you miss this opportunity, you can forget about waiting for the Dark Moon Clan's Patriarch to come and save you. The Thunder Emperor said coldly. One day. Heavenly Lord Darkmoon took a deep breath and didn't refute. It was very easy to find a person in the city. However, half a day had passed, and they couldn't even find Yi Qinghan's shadow. Heavenly Lord Darkmoon was a little anxious. She mobilized all the forces in the city and demanded that they must find Yi Qinghan in the remaining half a day. Sun Yu knew that he had gotten himself into big trouble. He didn't dare to tell his father or Heavenly Lord Darkmoon that he had secretly gone to his cultivation courtyard. Yi Qinghan's forehead was sweating. The sense of crisis was getting stronger and stronger. His injuries were still very serious. It was extremely dangerous to deal with one supreme being, let alone 3. Sun Yu jogged all the way to Yi Qinghan's seclusion place and forcefully opened the door. Yi Qinghan woke up with a start. He frowned and asked, Has half a year passed? Sun Yu was a little frightened and said in surprise, The 3 people outside are too strong. They have already forced Heavenly Lord Darkmoon to hand you over to stall for time. Now, they have ordered to search for your location. You should hurry up and leave. Otherwise, you will cause big trouble for me. Even my clan will be destroyed because of you. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and looked at his injuries. If he went out now, wouldn't he die without a doubt? Can't you delay for 1 more month? Yi Qinghan asked in a deep voice. Sun Yu shook his head and begged bitterly, I beg you, please go out yourself. Otherwise, our entire city will be destroyed. Now that the Dark Moon clan has suffered countless casualties, I will return all the resources to you. As long as you can go out and face them yourself. Hu Yiqinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He didn't expect that what should come would come so quickly. Even the Dark Moon clan's elders chose to compromise. This meant that the city couldn't hold on any longer. There was no need to stay any longer. Yiqinghan slowly stood up and said indifferently, "Keep the resources. I will go out and face them myself." "Thank you, my lord." Sun Yu was grateful because she wasn't stupid. Someone who could fight with the three people outside definitely wasn't weak. Yiqinghan's strength must be amazing. If he didn't want to go out and face them, she might be suppressed by this person. In the end, this city would be destroyed. Ka. Yiqinghan's body shook. Although he hadn't recovered 50% of his strength, he still had 40%. Even if he couldn't deal with the three supreme beings, he still had a chance to escape. Hua! Yiqinghan stepped out of the mountaintop courtyard and rushed directly to the city wall. Whoosh! A moment later, Yiqinghan landed on the city wall. His blood-red clothes fluttered and his aura soared to the sky. It shocked Heavenly Lord Darkmoon so much that her expression changed. Chapter 2690. Yiqinghan appeared. His blood-red robe fluttered in the wind, and his aura was like a rainbow. The moment he appeared, he caused the order in the surroundings to solidify. Wu Qingkong is dead. Perhaps you don't know about it yet. Yiqinghan looked down at the three of them coldly. He stepped out of the city wall and landed outside the city. He waved his hand and took out Zhongquang as he shouted coldly. Wu Qingkong was a supreme martial artist in his fourth form. His combat strength was definitely more powerful than Master Dao and the others. How could he be dead? Master Dao, Thunder Emperor, and Su Tianyao were in disbelief and doubt. Bullshit! How could you kill Wu Qingkong with your cultivation? Thunder Emperor's murderous aura soared as he questioned coldly. He also wanted to hear Yiqinghan's reply. After all, the news of Yiqinghan killing Wu Qingkong had shocked him so much that his face turned pale. Yiqinghan's goal was to crush their Dao hearts. He stared at the three of them with a condescending gaze and stepped forward forcefully. Then, he said quietly, "It's just Wu Qingkong. It's not like he can't be killed. Didn't you notice that he hasn't appeared since he entered the cave? If I can kill him, I can kill you all. Since you already know my identity, don't even think about leaving." Huff, 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 dong, dong, dong. The three supreme martial artists were finally nervous. Yiqinghan must be telling the truth. Wu Qingkong might really be dead. Wu Qingkong was the strongest of the 5 Archean Master God's inheritors. He was much stronger than the three of them. However, he was the first to die. How could they not be afraid? The three supreme martial artists looked at each other. Their spines were drenched in cold sweat. Their hearts were beating wildly, and their eyes were filled with murderous intent. I have to admit that you do have the potential to be an emperor. However, ask yourself, do you still have the strength to fight? Today, the three of us will send you on your way. Master Dao took a deep breath and slowly changed his position. They joined forces and blocked Yiqinghan and the other two's escape route. Whoosh! Swords of thunder and lightning were gathering. The sound of the great Dao was deafening. The dim dark moon star suddenly shone brightly. Yiqinghan brandished the long saber in his hand. The edge of the saber emitted a cold light, and a huge aura assaulted the vision of the experts on the city walls. Goosebumps rose all over their bodies. The Dark Moon clan had gathered so many experts, yet they were still unable to contend against the three experts. Yet, Yiqinghan, despite being heavily injured, was able to forcefully resist them. Moreover, he was able to overwhelm the three experts in terms of aura. Boom! Yi Qinghan stomped on the ground and charged toward the Lightning Emperor, who was in the center. His blade cleaved apart the darkness of the mountains and rivers as it collided with the lightning sword. The aftershocks soared into the sky and collided with the barrier of the ancient city wall. The barrier distorted and almost collapsed. Only a battle between supreme martial artists would show the might of a supreme martial artist. Swish, swish, swish. Boom. In the blink of an eye, Yi Qinghan and the Thunder Emperor had exchanged over 100 moves. The power of each strike caused the ground to crack. However, after a short moment, the two of them were sent flying backwards while coughing up blood. This was not a competition, but a true battle. They were completely putting their lives on the line. Roar. The sound of the great Tao descended from the sky. The ear-piercing roar caused the faces of the Dark Moon Clan experts in the distance to distort. They felt as if their souls were about to explode. In the blink of an eye, the 5 elements intertwined and formed 5 huge dragons that swooped down from the sky. They forcefully swallowed the sky and the sea, shattering all order. The Master God technique, 5 elements heaven-swallowing technique, smashed toward Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's eyes shot out golden light. The order of 10,000 laws turned into nothingness as he shuttled back and forth between the 5 huge dragons. He constantly dodged and looked for opportunities to continue attacking the Thunder Emperor. If he wanted to leave alive under such circumstances, he had to focus on one person. He had to beat the Thunder Emperor until he was afraid. He had to beat the Thunder Emperor until he had no choice but to give up on chasing after Yi Qinghan and choose to escape. Only then would he have the chance to break out of the encirclement. Boom! Yi Qinghan's body flipped in midair. His left hand slashed out with a blade towards the void cliff. His right fist shattered space and ruthlessly collided with the lightning sword. Flames soared into the sky as the lightning sword swayed. It only lasted for a moment before it was shattered by the Flame Ancestor's arm. The momentum of this punch was not yet exhausted as it smashed toward the Thunder Emperor. Boom! Ka ka ka! The sound of the void shattering could be heard incessantly. The Thunder Emperor was terrified. However, he did not dare to retreat. He could not retreat either. Lightning covered his entire body as his fist, imbued with the lightning origin, smashed toward Yi Qinghan's right fist. Bang! Boom! Yi Qinghan had practically used up all his strength. He used the momentum of lightning to shatter the Thunder Emperor's attack. Without the support of the Master God artifact Thor's hammer, it was impossible for the Thunder Emperor to contend against Yi Qinghan's golden body of the utmost holy, let alone against the Flame Ancestor's right arm. The bones in his hand were directly shattered as his body involuntarily retreated. Die for me! Yi Qinghan could no longer care about the bombardment of the 5 elements' divine palms behind him. He dodged the attack of the sound of the great Tao and kicked at the Thunder Emperor. His right elbow smashed toward the Thunder Emperor's head. Boom, boom, boom. Bang. Almost at the same time, Yi Qinghan's attack landed on the Thunder Emperor's body. However, Su Tianya's 5 elements palm also landed on Yi Qinghan's back. Pooh! Yi Qinghan's body involuntarily smashed into the distance. As for the Thunder Emperor, his internal organs were almost shattered by Yi Qinghan's kick and elbow. His vision turned black, and his body crashed into the ground in the opposite direction of Yi Qinghan. A battle between experts was too cruel. In less than an hour since Yi Qinghan's appearance, the 2 experts had almost perished together. Yi Qinghan's injuries all burst open, and fresh blood dyed his body red. His survival instincts made him not dare to lie on the ground. He quickly crawled up and almost subconsciously attacked behind him. As expected, Tao Master held the secondary Great Tao Edge weapon in his hand, and in the blink of an eye, he was already behind him. Boom! Although the secondary Great Tao Edge weapon was not an immemorial Master Divine weapon, It was still in existence second only to a master divine weapon. The two divine weapons caused the void to distort. Yi Qinghan's injuries worsened and his legs could not stand. He turned his body and brushed past Tao Master. Both of them left a bloody wound on the other's shoulder. The venerable Tao Master couldn't stop himself, but Yi Qinghan borrowed the momentum to kill the Thunder Emperor, who was lying in a pool of blood. Although Su Tianyao intercepted him from the left, Yi Qinghan didn't care. Just as the Thunder Emperor was struggling to stand up, he threw out his saber. Roar! Boom! The 7 feet heavy sword pulled out a flame and directly passed through a different space, appearing directly in front of the Thunder Emperor's chest. Poochie! Whoosh! The 7 feet heavy sword tore apart the Thunder Emperor's defense. The blade pierced through the Thunder Emperor's chest, bringing his body through the void and smashing into the barrier of the Dark Moon clan's ancient city. The long blade stabbed out of his back and stabbed into the city wall. Boom! The Thunder Emperor held the hilt of the blade in his chest with both hands. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and anger as he screamed. The lightning in the surroundings roared crazily, drowning the city wall. Boom! The Dark Moon Heavenly Lord seized the opportunity and flew down from the city wall. She slammed her palm down on the Thunder Emperor's head from above. The Thunder Emperor's body rapidly fell, but the 7 feet heavy sword was firmly nailed to the city wall. The blade cut his body in two. His body died, but the Thunder Emperor's soul hid in his chief god Spark and soared into the sky. Yi Qinghan, I will definitely come back to take revenge on you. The mournful, angry roar was filled with unwillingness as he let out a final roar. However, Yi Qinghan did not have much time. The long blade cut through the Thunder Emperor's body, and his body burrowed into the ravine, dodging Su Tianyau's attack. Boom! The 5 elements' divine palm erupted with monstrous chief god power and instantly drowned the deep ravine. Su Tianyau was still thinking of taking advantage of the situation to kill Yi Qinghan. At this moment, the Dark Moon Heavenly Lord descended from the sky with the Dark Moon ring in her hand and smashed it at Su Tianyau, forcing him to give up on killing Yi Qinghan. Puff! Yi Qinghan was shaken to the point of bleeding from his 7 orifices. He rushed out of the ravine while on the verge of death. He waved his hand and threw out the 9-chain gourd, which swallowed the violent energy around him. After the 9 gourds' openings transformed into energy, they spurted out in an instant. The violent energy blasted toward the Tao Master. Chapter 2691. The 9-linked gourd spewed out 9 rays of divine light and 9 colored waves. They tore apart the order of the Dark Moon star and engulfed Tao Master, sending him flying for more than 100 meters. Hum! Whoosh! The entire city wall was shaking. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and the 7-foot heavy sword on the city wall was pulled out automatically. The ancient and majestic city wall almost collapsed. Boom! The 7-foot heavy sword rushed from the city wall into Yi Qinghan's hand. Yi Qinghan was dizzy at this time. He was almost certain that if he couldn't kill or injure Tao Master, he would definitely die. There was no doubt about it. Since death was imminent, he didn't need to think too much. All he needed to do was to use all his strength for the final attack. Whether he could survive or not depended on this attack. God-slaying and immortal-slaying, Yi Qinghan gathered more than 1,000 kinds of Yen Clan's grand magic in an instant. The ancient time and space were torn apart. The light completely engulfed the Dark Moon star. The entire Dark Moon star was in a state of panic. The essence of the Yen Clan's grand magic was gathered here. It gathered into a blade technique grand magic, and caused the great Tao of lightning to roar. A chasm appeared outside the ancient city wall. The impact spread out for thousands of miles and tore the earth apart. The restriction inside the Dark Moon star was shattered. The light of the star once again shrouded this ancient star. In the blink of an eye, Yi Qinghan split the sky with his broadsword and chopped into the area submerged by the nine-chain gourd. With the last glimmer of light in his eyes, he found where Tao Master was and chopped at him with great determination. Tao Master was shocked and retreated. However, his speed was far slower than Yi Qinghan's crazy speed. In the end, he had to give up on escaping. He threw the minor edge of Great Tao in his hand. It pierced through the void and pierced Yi Qinghan's body. Yi Qinghan looked straight ahead. He only wanted to kill Tao Master. Otherwise, even if he dodged the minor edge of Great Tao, he wouldn't be able to dodge Tao Master's next attack. Die. You and I are together. I'm not the only Yen clan's inheritance. However, your Master God's inheritance will end today. Yi Qinghan's face was ferocious and his body was covered in blood. He looked like a primordial demon that had crawled out of hell. He used his body to block the secondary Great Tao edge weapon, while his 7 feet heavy hammer unleashed thousands of Yen clan's grand divine arts and viciously struck Tao Master's chest. Whoosh! Boom! Puff! Ah! 2 miserable shrieks rang out. The 2 supreme beings lost control of their bodies. One was torn apart, while the other was pierced through by the secondary Great Tao edge weapon. The secondary Great Tao edge weapon directly smashed into the city walls. The ancient city walls were also pierced through. Soon after, the ancient city behind them collapsed. Yi Qinghan's body was sent flying through the air. His legs lost their balance, and he landed heavily on the ground. Then, he glanced at the dead Tao Master from the corner of his eyes. His eyes were filled with gratification and a bitter smile. Then, his face was thrown to the ground. Bang! Yi Qinghan's chest and back had been pierced through. There were more than a dozen wounds on his body that were spurting blood. At this moment, the 9-linked ring gourd and berserk madness entered his body on their own accord, helping to block the Great Tao edge's wound. This wound was fatal. If it couldn't be blocked, he would die without a doubt. The other wounds could slowly heal on their own, but not this one. But Yi Qinghan could no longer feel anything. Although the lesser Great Tao edge weapon wasn't a primordial sovereign artifact, it was still equivalent to a divine general artifact. Combined with the attacks of a sovereign technique, his soul and body were both in a state of near death. Whether or not he could survive was all up to luck. It had nothing to do with his will, because his will had long since been shattered. However, Tao Sovereign was in an even worse state. Aside from his godhead, his physical body was completely destroyed. His soul was missing a part of it. If he couldn't find it, he would never be able to come back. Whoosh! At the end of the day, the Chief God Divine Core was still a Chief God Divine Core. Just like the Chief God Divine Core in the Thunder Monarch's possession, it escaped the battlefield with its incomplete soul. However, they could forget about returning to the Void Ridge to fight for hegemony. Hiss hiss hiss. Countless experts from the Dark Moon clan gasped. The entire Dark Moon clan had fought together for several months. Not only did they not gain any battle achievements, but they had also lost all their battle achievements. Yi Qinghan had fought with his half-crippled body, but in just 2 hours, he had caused 2 deaths and 1 injury. Although everyone thought that Yi Qinghan was already dead, his battle strength still made them feel fear and awe. Hiss hiss hiss, whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, only the Dark Moon Heavenly Venerables and Su Tianyao were still fighting. However, many second and third stage experts from the Dark Moon clan were fighting nearby, restraining Su Tianyao. In addition, Tao Sovereign and the Thunder Monarch had died in battle. Su Tianyao was terrified and wanted to escape as soon as possible. His fighting spirit was not high enough, and he was hit several times in a row. Boom! Bang! The Dark Moon Ring ruthlessly cut Su Tianya's throat, almost smashing his head into pieces and severely injuring him. Puff! Su Tianya's eyes flashed, and he almost fainted. His mouth was full of blood. He roared unwillingly, "Damn Dark Moon clan, you ruin my plans. The next time I come back, It will be the day I become an emperor. I will trample the entire Dark Moon clan. Whoosh! Boom! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Su Tianya fled in the air, turning into the 5 elements and disappearing without a trace. Su Tianya escaped with serious injuries. Tao's sovereign was only left with an incomplete soul that was taken away by the Master God's divine spark. The same happened to the Thunder Monarch. Wu Qingkong was dead. 4 divine generals were dead. This was the price of ambushing Yi Qinghan. However, the damage done to Yi Qinghan was irreversible. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's chances of survival were too slim. Looking at Yi Qinghan lying in a pool of blood, Dark Moon Heavenly Venerables felt goosebumps. He had never seen such a ferocious person. His combat power was so high that it was far beyond the Dark Moon clan leader and Dark Moon crown prince. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, dong dong dong. Dark Moon Heavenly Venerables took a deep breath and gestured with his hand. Take him back to the Dark Moon Palace. Whoosh! 2 figures came to Yi Qinghan. They were the 2 experts, An Yun and An Feng. They looked at Yi Qinghan in a pool of blood with fear and respect. They did not dare to get close. What are you afraid of? He is already dead. After suffering so many heavy blows, no one can think of surviving. Dark Moon Heavenly Venerables said coldly. Here. The 2 experts looked at each other. Then, they carried Yi Qinghan and followed Dark Moon Heavenly Venerables into the depths of the Dark Moon planet. The Dark Moon planet was incomparably huge. There were countless cities and tribes. The Dark Moon Palace was in the deepest part of the Dark Moon planet. It was surrounded by dozens of large cities in the central area. No one could casually enter the Dark Moon Palace. A few days later, the 3 of them brought Yi Qinghan to the Dark Moon Palace. Elder, how should we deal with this person? An Feng and the old man immediately bowed and asked. Dark Moon Heavenly Venerable's eyes flashed and said in a deep voice, This person is unfathomable and uncontrollable. Use the Dark Moon Ring to seal him on the left side of the Dark Moon Palace. Use the power of the Dark Moon to suppress him. Everything will wait for the clan leader to return. Here. The 2 of them bowed and left. They brought the unconscious Yi Qinghan to the plaza on the left side of the Dark Moon Palace. There were 4 pillars on the plaza. They were very thick and had countless runes and totems engraved on them. It was unknown how many years of history they had carried. Dark Moon Heavenly Venerables followed out. She formed a seal with her hands and controlled the Dark Moon Ring. 4 Dark Moon Rings appeared in her hands and wrapped around Yi Qinghan's wrists and ankles respectively. Hua hua hua! Ka 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 ka! The 4 pillars suddenly shot out a Dark Moon iron chain and wrapped around the Dark Moon Ring on Yi Qinghan's wrists and ankles. The Dark Moon Ring and Dark Moon iron chain borrowed the power of the Dark Moon. Unless Yi Qinghan had the ability to shatter the Dark Moon Star, it was impossible for him to break free. He was already on the verge of death. Under such circumstances, the danger was even greater. Yi Qinghan's head hung down on his chest. He didn't have any consciousness. His body was still dripping blood. He was tied half a meter above the ground by the iron chain. He was muddle-headed. Chapter 2692. The restriction formation inside the Dark Moon Star was broken by Yi Qinghan's last strike. As time went by, the sun began to shine on the Dark Moon Star. The dazzling light made it hard to open one's eyes. The entire Dark Moon clan was extremely unaccustomed to such an environment. It affected their retinas and distorted the space they saw. The scorching sun shone on Yi Qinghan, who was covered in blood. He had not woken up for half a year. His blood was gradually solidifying. The Dharma was still there, which meant that the aura of death had not occupied his bloodline and body. The wounds on Yi Qinghan's body had already formed scabs. Even the penetrating wounds caused by the secondary edge weapon of the Great Tao on his chest and back had healed. Fortunately, his heart and origin were not damaged. The injuries caused by the secondary edge weapon of the Great Tao were mostly healed in half a year under the care of Yi Qinghan's strong body and survival instinct, as well as the 9-linked ring gourd. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Yi Qinghan's fingertips moved slightly and opened his misty eyes. The blood had solidified his eyes. His body moved slightly and the dark moon chain on his limbs made a crisp sound. The heavy dark moon ring locked his body like a shackle. All order was suppressed by the halo of the dark moon. Yi Qinghan slowly raised his head, and only then did he realize his current situation. Was he caught? Yi Qinghan furrowed his brows as he tried to recall his last memory. It seemed to be a long time ago when that blade had broken through the shackles and completed the most powerful attack he had ever made, killing Lord Taixin. However, he had also fainted because of the secondary great-edged weapon of the Great Path. He didn't know how long he had been unconscious, where he was, or who had captured him. Is it Su Tian Cliff? Why didn't he kill me? Yi Qinghan wanted to speak, but he could not even speak. His throat seemed to be blocked, and he could only think slowly. Yi Qinghan's eyes were stinging. He could not adapt to the scorching sun. He raised his heavy head and felt that his neck was about to break. It was extremely strenuous. He looked at the huge square in the distance. There was not even a shadow. The images in front of him overlapped, and he was at a loss. Is there anyone? Yi Qinghan's hoarse voice, which didn't sound like a human's, sounded weak and feeble. No one responded, perhaps because his voice was too soft. After a long time, Yi Qinghan gradually adapted to the blinding sunlight. His body struggled a few more times, but the dark moon halo tightened. His body landed on the ground, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not break free from the chains. The 4 pillars seemed to be connected to the dark moon planet. He could not move them at all. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and used his right arm to pull at the dark moon chain. The chain was pulled taut, but the pillar did not budge. Perhaps it was the restlessness of the iron chains that attracted the attention of others. A dozen people appeared in the square, and they were all members of the Dark Moon clan. Their faces were very beautiful, but their eyes were very distinguishable. Yi Qinghan looked at this group of people in shock. They were all very young, and there were both men and women. Their eyes were filled with shock, awe, and fear. It was as if they were looking at a foreign race, a rare creature. They did not dare to come close to him. Did the Dark Moon clan capture me? Yi Qinghan was a little surprised. He did not expect the Dark Moon clan to capture him. Moreover, they captured him when his life was uncertain. They clearly wanted to take his life. I want to see the Dark Moon clan leader. Yi Qinghan painfully raised his head and looked at the dozen or so young Dark Moon clan members. He said hoarsely, "The clan leader is not here. What do you want to say to this king?" A member of the royal family, who seemed to be of noble status, pretended to be calm, and said arrogantly. Yi Qinghan frowned and looked at the crowd. He asked in a low voice, "Why did you capture me?" "Because you are a foreign race. You have destroyed the order of the Dark Moon planet. You are an uncontrollable person. That is why the Elder ordered to capture you." The young prince replied angrily. Phew! Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His internal organs were tingling with pain. He could not summon any strength from his body. He was only relying on his physical body to heal his injured body. At this moment, he could not summon any combat power. "Can you inform your elder?" Yi Qinghan asked tentatively. With cracked lips, a battered and exhausted appearance, and ragged clothes, Yi Qinghan was just a beggar at this moment. A very battered beggar. He no longer had the imposing manner of an emperor. If it was before, he would not need to discuss with these people. "Who do you think you are? You use such words when you see this king. You don't even have a heart of reverence. Why should this king help you?" The young prince ridiculed with disdain. Yi Qinghan shook his head and no longer communicated with these juniors. That dark moon heavenly sovereign would definitely come looking for him if she knew that he had woken up. Soon after, Yi Qinghan lowered his head and did not say anything. He wanted to mobilize his power to speed up the healing of his injured body. However, the power he could mobilize was very little. The order within his body was suppressed by the dark moon halo. When those youngsters saw that Yi Qinghan no longer paid attention to them, they cursed a few words and left. Half a day later, Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign appeared in the plaza with a dignified expression. Apart from the Dark Moon Crown Prince and the Patriarch, he was the strongest. He had a suppressive aura in his bones. "What is your name?" Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign asked coldly. Yi Qinghan raised his head and looked at Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign. His hair was disheveled, as if he had aged countless years. He was currently weak and said in a low voice, "I am Yi Qinghan from the Yen clan. I have no enmity with your clan. Why did you capture me? Why did you use this dark moon halo to bind me even when I am at the end of my life? Do you want my life? This has nothing to do with me. I am responsible for the lives of my clansmen. You are an uncontrollable factor. It is imperative to capture you. Everything will wait until the Patriarch returns before deciding whether to release you." Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign replied coldly, "Let me go. From now on, I will never step into the Dark Moon Star again. You and I have no enmity. I have no reason to harm your clan. Besides, you and I have a common enemy. Ancient immortals and ancient gods. Isn't that right?" Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. "No." Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign refused without hesitation. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Look at my current state. How can I cause any harm to your clan?" A scene flashed in Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign's mind. He thought of how Yi Qinghan, with his half-crippled body, caused 2 deaths and 1 injury in 2 hours. Although he was also at the end of his life, that was the joint attack of 3 sovereigns. Even if the Dark Moon Patriarch, the Crown Prince, and himself joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to defeat the joint attack of the ancient god inheritors. Yet, Yi Qinghan had single-handedly fought until both sides were injured. For this kind of person, the more injured he was, the easier it was for him to erupt with crazy fighting strength. Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign was afraid of Yi Qinghan. Even if Yi Qinghan was at the end of his life, he was still afraid of him. Hua! Dark Moon Heavenly Sovereign turned around and left, leaving Yi Qinghan with a heartless back view. A second ago they were still working together. The next moment they met on the battlefield. No one could believe that they were living in troubled times. Yi Qinghan could understand the Dark Moon clan's actions, but it didn't mean that he wasn't angry. It's unrealistic to break free from the shackles of the Dark Moon halo now, unless I can recover my peak fighting strength. However, if I can't heal myself, I'm afraid I won't be able to recover my peak state within 1,000 years. Yi Qinghan clenched his right arm, not daring to waste any energy. On the distant gluttonous star, Mount Jingfan was very unlucky. She got lost in the Cave of Mysteries. After walking for a few decades, she actually came back. On the other hand, Yi Chenxing and Chu Shijun coincidentally walked out of the Cave of Mysteries and entered an affiliated plane. After several months of running, they finally arrived in front of the space-time transfer stele. The two of them looked at each other, not knowing if they should enter this boundary stele. Where did the boundary stele lead to? Did Yi Qinghan enter the boundary stele? Everything was unknown. If Yi Qinghan was here, the two of them might be glad. However, if he wasn't, wouldn't it be a waste of effort? Instead, they would waste a great opportunity to save Yi Qinghan. The two of them looked at each other and asked in unison, "What should we do?" I'm already in despair in the book review section. There are people scolding me, and there are also people scolding me. Please stop. I need time to write. It's my fault that my hand speed can't keep up with your eye speed. Chapter 2693. Time flew by and 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. No new experts came to this border region. Yi Qinghan had been locked in the plaza for 10 years. Only an extremely beautiful young girl brought him some water and food every day. She even took the initiative to help him clean the foreign objects on his body. The girl looked to be around 18 or 19 years old. Her cultivation was also not bad. Looking at her clear eyes, she didn't seem to have any purpose. She should be purely looking at Yi Qinghan's pity. Cleaning the foreign objects on his body every day allowed Yi Qinghan's body to be released. His recovery speed increased by a lot. The food was very good. It was rich in blood energy and replenished some energy. Perhaps because this girl's status was good and she didn't provide Yi Qinghan with pills or the like, Empyrean Dark Moon didn't stop her. 10 years was like a day. Yi Qinghan was somewhat moved. This girl was very persistent. She didn't even say a word to him during this period. Today, 10 years later, Yi Qinghan couldn't help but take the initiative to say, "Thank you for taking care of me for the past 10 years. If there is a chance, I will definitely repay this kindness." The young girl smiled and stood in front of Yi Qinghan. After feeding him a few mouthfuls of water, she replied in a crisp voice, "Esteemed one, don't take it to heart. It's fine as long as you don't resent the Dark Moon clan. Right now, there are no experts in the clan. The Empyrean Elder was also afraid that you would attack the Dark Moon clan, so he had no choice but to trap you." Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. After being trapped like this for 10 years, the pain caused by the injuries on his body was unimaginable. If it wasn't for this girl alleviating a lot of his pain in the past 10 years, the first thing he would do after breaking free would be to kill Empyrean Dark Moon. "Your grandfather is the Dark Moon clan's patriarch?" Yi Qinghan asked in a hoarse voice. The girl nodded and whispered, "Yes, I'm Princess Anwu of the Dark Moon Imperial family. You can call me Anwu." Dark Dance was beautiful and calm. She didn't fight or hide, and she was kind-hearted. In the Dark Moon royal family, she probably had the most friends. Therefore, when she served Yi Qinghan all these years, no one laughed at her. Instead, they only thought that she was kind-hearted. "Where did your grandfather go? Why haven't you returned for so many years?" Yi Qinghan frowned and asked. "Grandpa Patriarch and Uncle Crown Prince went to find an exit. They want to take the Dark Moon clan out of this poor village and return to the ancient immortal world." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said in a self-deprecating tone, "The ancient immortal realm has already been torn apart and is no longer suitable for living." And Wu was shocked. The Dark Moon clan had been away from the ancient immortal world for too long. They didn't even know about the war between the Yen clan and the ancient immortals and gods. They also didn't know that the ancient immortal world had been torn apart. However, while Dark Dancer was still in shock, Yi Qinghan snapped out of his daze. Frowning, he asked, "What did you just say? They're looking for a way back? Could it be that the space-time transfer tablet on the voracious wolf star can transfer us over but you can't?" Dark Dancer looked at Yi Qinghan's shocked expression and couldn't bear to tell him the truth. However, she didn't want him to be kept in the dark either. After a moment of hesitation, she replied truthfully, "According to historical records, the transfer tablet can only be used once. It's said that it's a punishment for the Dark Moon clan by the ancient immortals and gods." Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. If they couldn't use the transfer tablet and relied on manpower alone, it would take countless years even if the primordial immortal emperor flew. It would take him billions of years to return. It was even uncertain if he could find the way back. By the time he returned, it would be too late. Who knew what would happen to the crazed manor? Roar! Yi Qinghan's body let out a bestial roar. He stood on the square as though he was rooted to the ground. The veins on his arms bulged and the iron chains rattled. His hair was disheveled and he looked ferocious and vicious. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom, the entire square was trembling. Even the Dark Moon Palace was emitting a monstrous light. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon, I'll give you one last chance. Let me go. Yi Qinghan roared and his aura pushed Dark Dancer 100 meters away. However, he didn't hurt her. Whoosh, whoosh. More than 10 figures quickly appeared on the square. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon had also arrived. Looking at Yi Qinghan's crazed eyes, her heart turned cold and even her spine broke out in cold sweat. Dark Dancer, what did you say to Yi Qinghan? Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon asked in a deep voice. Dark Dancer said in fear, I only told him. According to historical records, the transfer tablet on the Voracious Wolf Star can only be used once. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon immediately understood that Yi Qinghan was in a hurry to return. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon, I'm warning you. If you don't let me go, after I break free today, your Dark Moon clan will become history. Yi Qinghan's eyes emitted an ominous glint. His right arm, the Flame Ancestor arm, nearly shattered the Dark Moon Ring. The Dark Moon Ring blossomed with light, but it couldn't withstand the power of the Flame Ancestor's right arm. Whoosh! Buzz! The entire Dark Moon Star was bursting with light. Energy continuously rushed into the 4 pillars. The pillars passed through the iron chains and into the Dark Moon Ring. Endless energy supported the Dark Moon Ring as it crazily resisted Yi Qinghan. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Crack crack crack. The Dark Moon Iron Chain was a legend. Anyone who was bound by it wouldn't be able to break free unless they took the initiative to release it. However, it was now in imminent danger. Yi Qinghan stretched the iron chain. He flipped his right hand and grabbed the iron chain, wanting to break it. Boom boom boom. The 4 pillars trembled, causing the experts of the Dark Moon clan to be alarmed. A second-degree realm expert pulled out his sword and stabbed towards Yi Qinghan. The sword light was like a rainbow, unstoppable. However, just as he got close to Yi Qinghan, a majestic energy blasted him away. The sharp sword couldn't even break his defense. Ants, I didn't want to bother with you, but you have repeatedly challenged my bottom line. Yi Qinghan stared at Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon and the people of the Dark Moon clan. The murderous intent in his eyes grew thicker and thicker. Dark Dance didn't expect that her words would cause such a big disaster. She immediately rushed forward without caring about the danger and pleaded, Esteemed Lord, don't be angry. Grandfather will be back soon. There's no need to wait for him to come back. Ah! Yi Qinghan roared towards the sky. His right arm held the iron chain. His strength was sky-high. His black hair was blown up by the energy, and he turned into an ancient demon. The square under his feet was shattered by him even though there was a barrier protecting it. Hua! Heavenly Sovereign Darkman's murderous intent was obvious as he couldn't tolerate it any longer. Yi Qinghan was an uncontrollable factor, and he could exterminate the Dark Moon clan anytime. He could only make the first move. The Dark Moon ring in his hand controlled the bracelets on Yi Qinghan's 4 limbs as it shrunk continuously. Dark Dance, back off. I will kill him today, lest you cause more trouble. Hua! Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon soared into the sky and borrowed the Dark Moon star's energy to gather in his palms. Whoosh! A figure flew across the sky and directly captured Dark Dance, who was in front of Yi Qinghan. Following that, Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon hacked down viciously as energy flooded the square. Boom! Yi Qinghan waved his iron arm and smashed the iron chain towards Heavenly Sovereign Darkman's attack. In an instant, the repercussions shattered the ground. Even the 2nd and 3rd degree realm experts were sent flying. If it wasn't for the fact that Dark Dance was brought away, the repercussions would have killed her. No. Heavenly Sovereign Elder, he's not a bad person. Dark Dance pushed away the arms of the expert who brought her away and shouted towards Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon. Unfortunately, she was one step too late. Even if she wasn't late, Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon wouldn't listen to her. Crack! After a crisp sound, Yi Qinghan's right arm released the power of People's Path. Together with Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon's attack, it directly shattered the Dark Moon ring on his right wrist. His physical body blocked Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon's attack. Although blood flowed all over the ground, it didn't hurt his foundation. Dong dong dong, the surrounding Dark Moon clansmen frantically fled and screamed because Yi Qinghan broke free from the Dark Moon iron chain's restraint. His right arm broke free and he sent Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon flying with a punch. You're all courting death. Boom! Yi Qinghan's right arm broke free and his power was circulated. The majestic power of People's Path shattered everything and fiercely smashed towards the Dark Moon ring on his left wrist. In a blink of an eye, it shattered. The power circulated to his limbs and bones. This powerful Dark Moon ring had controlled Yi Qinghan for more than 10 years, but it was still shattered in the end. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon was stunned. She was completely unable to accept the current situation. When she saw Yi Qinghan breaking free from the last shackle on his leg, she knew it was over. She stood powerlessly on the ground and with a plop, she knelt on the ground. This matter has nothing to do with Dark Moon Clan. It was all done by me alone. If you want to kill me, it's up to you. Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon was straightforward as she directly knelt on the ground and admitted her mistake, taking all the responsibility. Yi Qinghan sneered as he clenched his right arm and slowly walked towards Heavenly Sovereign Dark Moon. Chapter 2694. Fourth Form people did not dare to fight against Yi Qinghan. It was not that Empyrean Dark Moon was weak, but Yi Qinghan was too cruel. 4 Supremes joined forces and ended up killing 3 and injuring 1. Of course, Empyrean Dark Moon did not know that Yi Qinghan had killed a 4th form Wu Qingkong. Otherwise, he would have killed Yi Qinghan on the same day. There was no need to wait until now. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Thud thud thud, Yi Qinghan stepped towards Empyrean Dark Moon. The killing intent in his eyes grew stronger. He slowly raised his right arm and made up his mind to kill. You saved my life back then, but you also locked me up when I was at the end of my rope and left me to fend for myself. My life was saved by myself. I don't owe you anything. Empyrean Dark Moon, I warned you before, but you didn't listen. Don't blame me for your death. Yi Qinghan's voice was filled with killing intent, causing people to shudder. Empyrean Dark Moon did not resist because he knew that if he resisted, Yi Qinghan would destroy the Dark Moon clan. It did not matter if the clan leader returned or not. Therefore, he lowered his head and waited for death. Whoosh! At this moment, Dark Dance rushed over recklessly and stood in front of Empyrean Dark Moon. She knelt in front of Yi Qinghan and begged, "Esteemed Lord, I beg you. Don't kill us. Dark Dance begs you to stop killing us. Spare us. We really didn't do it on purpose." Huff huff huff, Yi Qinghan's breathing was rapid and his eyes were red. The best 10 years to recover from his injuries had been wasted by Empyrean Dark Moon. How could he not be angry? Dark Dance, thank you for taking care of me for 10 years. I will spare your Dark Moon clan, but this person must die. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Dark Dance raised her head and looked at Yi Qinghan's ferocious gaze. Although she was terrified, she was also firm. She stretched out her hand to block Empyrean Dark Moon and said without hesitation, "Then please kill Dark Dance. My life in exchange for Elder's life." Just at that time, Empyrean Dark Moon felt gratified. However, she was unwilling to exchange a junior's life for her own. Thus she consoled, "Dark Dance, back down. This is my mistake." "No. You did it for the sake of the Dark Moon clan. My 10 years of care was to atone for your sins. Moreover, your life is more important than mine. You can protect the clan, but I can't." There was no longer fear in Dark Dance's eyes. There was only persistence, determination, and a fearless spirit of sacrifice. Hiss! Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. His waving right hand slowly lowered. He looked at the obedient and sensible dark dance, but he couldn't bear to see her die. Yi Qinghan's killing intent dissipated. The surrounding Dark Moon clan members didn't dare to breathe loudly. They looked at Yi Qinghan in horror. Perhaps only Dark Dance dared to talk to Yi Qinghan now. Dark Dance was the only one who was truly wise. She used 10 years of kindness to move an existence that had no feelings for the enemy. If it wasn't for Dark Dance's 10 years of care in exchange for Yi Qinghan's gratitude, there wouldn't be anyone left alive in the Dark Moon clan today. Empyrean Dark Moon, this Marquis spared your life today, but that doesn't mean I won't kill you in the future. In the future, when you see me, you must avoid me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Gram. Yi Qinghan said coldly. Empyrean Dark Moon didn't dare to anger Yi Qinghan anymore. Dignity was good, but she didn't want to risk her life for dignity. Many thanks, Lord Yi. This old man knows his mistake. Empyrean Dark Moon slowly stood up, bowed, and retreated. She didn't even dare to make any excessive movements, afraid of angering Yi Qinghan again. Angering Yi Qinghan was definitely not a good thing. If it was light, she would die. If it was heavy, the entire Dark Moon clan would be exterminated. Dark Dance was still kneeling in front of Yi Qinghan. She seemed to be waiting for Yi Qinghan to deal with her. Yi Qinghan looked at Dark Dance's pure face and said with a hoarse voice, "As a princess, you can be so kind and willing to sacrifice yourself for justice. This Marquis admires you. Stand up." "Many thanks, Lord Yi. Dark Dance knew you weren't a bad person." Dark Dance was moved to tears. She stood up and bowed. Yi Qinghan raised his head to look at the blazing sun in the sky. Time and space shifted, and he couldn't tell the path back to the ancient immortal world at all. Dark Dance's exaggeration sounded like nonsense to him. What is a good person? What is a bad person? To my enemies, I'm not a good person. To my friends, I'm not a bad person. In the future, don't use your eyes to distinguish between good and bad people. Otherwise, it will bring you a fatal disaster. Yi Qinghan reminded coldly. Dark Dance immediately replied, "Dark Dance only thinks that good deeds will have good results. Everyone has a good side." Yi Qinghan looked coldly at Dark Dance and scolded disdainfully, "Idiot. That's because you haven't seen what killing is. Once you see it, you'll realize that some people in this world are not good. Even if they are good, it's not against you." Hua! Yi Qinghan turned and left. Only his imposing back was left. Dark Dance didn't understand Yi Qinghan's words, but she still chased after him and asked, "Lord Yi, where are you going? Dark Dance might be able to show you the way." Yi Qinghan didn't turn back. He just said indifferently, "I'm afraid you're the only one in the Dark Moon clan who dares to show me the way. If you see me killing people, you won't dare to follow me. Go back. Only the Dark Moon Palace is suitable for a kind and pure person like you." Hua! Yi Qinghan ascended the sky step by step. He looked around as if he was looking for something. However, he couldn't find any clues in the boundless galaxy. He could come, but he couldn't go back. Dark Dance didn't expect Yi Qinghan's heart to be so dark. He couldn't tolerate a kind person. She could only follow him silently. In fact, she was afraid that Yi Qinghan would suddenly go crazy and hurt her clansmen, so she had to follow. "I'll also come out to train. It's not only suitable to stay at home. Lord Yi, can you not look down on me?" Dark Dance said sadly. Yi Qinghan kept changing his position. The distance he covered in an instant was a distance Dark Dance could only cover after a while. She was so tired that she was panting. However, she didn't dare let Yi Qinghan wander around planet Dark Moon. Hoo, dong dong dong. Dark Dance's heart was beating wildly. She was so tired that she was panting. However, she still clung to Yi Qinghan's back and said enthusiastically, "Lord Yi, I grew up on planet Dark Moon. I'm very familiar with this place. You can tell me what you're looking for. I'll definitely know. Yi Qinghan thought about it for a while. He didn't know what he was looking for, but if Greedy Wolf Star had a teleportation tablet, it meant there had to be a connection between the two stars. It couldn't have been a one-way trip, but he couldn't tell her how to contact him. So, he didn't know how to communicate with Dark Dance. You don't understand. Yi Qinghan coldly walked around the various cities of planet Dark Moon. He wanted to find that connection. Dark Dance was helpless. Yi Qinghan was like a sword that killed people. He wasn't good with words. It seemed like he didn't want to communicate with her. All she could do was follow him silently. Yi Qinghan really didn't want to communicate with her. Since she wanted to follow him, he would let her follow. When she was too tired to walk, she would naturally choose to leave. He walked silently. Along the way, he had swallowed several high-grade pills. Some of the internal injuries in his body hadn't been cleaned up. The scars on his body kept squeezing out foreign matter. After searching for a few days, he had traveled through dozens of large cities. He had walked for millions of miles. Yi Qinghan still couldn't find that point. The filth on his body started to compete with each other. It started to produce a strange smell. He found a valley where a river ran from north to south. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan rushed to the valley. He waved his hand and took off his ragged clothes. He jumped into the pool and swallowed some pills and resources. He closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. His body emitted a faint immortal light. The scars on his body couldn't disappear. They were all caused by the supreme treasures. It was almost impossible to completely heal them. The scars on his body were shocking. There were hundreds of scars of different sizes. Even his handsome and resolute face had a few scars. However, it didn't affect his handsome appearance. Instead, it added to his domineering and wild nature. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Dark Dance chased after him. She was so tired that she collapsed in the valley. When she saw Yi Qinghan taking off his clothes and cultivating, her face turned red. She quickly turned around and stopped looking at Yi Qinghan's body. She didn't even know where to put her hands. You don't have to chase after me. I'm not a murderous demon. I won't casually attack the people of the Dark Moon clan. Go back. I'll leave once I find the way back. Yi Qinghan said coldly without even opening his eyes. However, Dark Dance knew that there was no way back. Otherwise, the ancestors of the Dark Moon clan would have found it. After searching for so many years, not only did they not find the way back, many of them died. Many of the ancestors were lost in the galaxy and hadn't returned yet. If Yi Qinghan couldn't find it, he would inevitably be angry. Therefore, she refused to leave even if she was too tired to speak. Chapter 2695. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes slightly and glanced at Dark Dance from the corner of his eyes. This silly woman was too stubborn and too kind. She was willing to follow a murderous demon for the sake of her people. However, fortune favors fools. To be able to obtain the friendship of such a cruel person like Yi Qinghan, how could she not be lucky? Seeing that she was unwilling to leave, Yi Qinghan naturally knew what she was thinking and doing. Therefore, he did not attack her heart and let her follow him silently. After soaking in the water for more than 10 days, Yi Qinghan cleaned up all the blood clots and internal injuries in his body. Only then did he open his eyes. He had never felt so comfortable before. His realm had completely stabilized at the 3rd stage, and his strength had increased tenfold. If he were to fight a 4th stage supreme expert again, perhaps he would not be in such a sorry state. It was very likely that he would be able to crush them. Yi Qinghan gently breathed a sigh of relief, awakening Dark Dance who was meditating. After such a long time, he thought that Dark Dance had already left. He did not expect that she had actually stayed on the rock for more than 10 days and did not disturb him at all. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly and shook his head. This kind of girl was indeed rare. Sensible, obedient, pure, and almost untainted by evil. She maintained kindness in her heart. Even Yi Qinghan felt as if he had seen a pure land. After Dark Dance was awakened, she immediately stood up and said, "Esteemed Lord, I will leave for a moment. If you have any instructions, feel free to call me." After saying that, Dark Dance blushed and ran to hide under a rock in the distance. She did not even dare to show her head. Yi Qinghan got up and changed his clothes. The surface of his body was round and smooth. Holy light flowed around him, as if he was a sacred medicine. His entire temperament was incomparably noble. The domineering aura of the Taigu Emperor flashed across his brows. Every word and action of his was illustrious and dignified. After putting on his clothes, Yi Qinghan moved his body and kicked his long legs. The sound of space and time whistling and shattering could be heard incessantly. When Dark Dance heard the sound, she secretly stood up with her hands covering her eyes. Her fingers separated, revealing dark black thick eyebrows and big eyes. Her cute and pure nature was limited to this. Yi Qinghan said faintly, "Come out." Only then did Dark Dance release her hand. She stuck out her red tongue and stood up. Yi Qinghan sat on a round rock and looked down at Dark Dance. He had not looked at this stupid woman carefully for so many years, but today he was interested. Small cherry-like lips, thick eyebrows and big eyes. There was no difference between the people of the Dark Moon clan and humans. If there was a difference, it would be their eyes. Their entire eyes were dark black. Their skin was snow white. It was the kind of white that lacked sunlight. However, on Dark Wu's body, it gave off an even whiter feeling. Beauty, 8 points, kindness plus 2 points, 10 points. Yi Qinghan gave her a perfect score from the bottom of his heart. Under Yi Qinghan's sharp gaze, Dark Dancer's heart trembled. She didn't dare to raise her head. Her hands were clutching her clothes in front of her abdomen, constantly rubbing them. Her slender legs were trembling. "Since you're afraid of me, why are you following me?" Yi Qinghan asked sternly. I'm afraid you'll get angry and kill my clansmen," Dark Dance said truthfully. Yi Qinghan sneered and snorted. "Unless I have no other choice, I won't kill the weak. You can leave without worry." Dark Dance pursed her lips and said again, "I'm afraid you'll bump into Grandpa Clan Leader and Uncle Crown Prince." Yi Qinghan raised a complicated smile. Looking at the little woman in front of him, he really didn't know how to evaluate her. "Even if I bump into them, as long as they don't provoke me, I won't kill them. That should be fine, right?" Yi Qinghan said helplessly. Dark Dance looked up at Yi Qinghan with a wronged expression. She trembled but still refused to leave. She said nervously, "I'm afraid they'll provoke you." Yi Qinghan touched his forehead. His head hurt. It seemed that it was impossible to persuade her to go back. "Forget it. This marquis owes you. Follow me, follow me." Yi Qinghan gave up and said weakly. When Dark Dance heard this, she immediately smiled like the sun. She was pure, innocent, optimistic, and kind. Yi Qinghan didn't know how many years it had been since he last saw this kind of smile. Even the kindest person couldn't be kind when they were constantly in a killing environment. Looking at Dark Dance's smile, Yi Qinghan's cold face was no longer serious. "Let's go into the city. I also want to rest and eat something." Yi Qinghan stood up and said calmly. Yi Qinghan didn't need to eat or rest. He just didn't want this kind girl to be too tired. Whoosh, whoosh. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took Dark Dance away. Time and space changed and the stars moved. His speed was so fast that it completely exceeded Dark Dance's imagination. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, an ancient city appeared before them. Whoosh! A moment later, Yi Qinghan landed outside the city and stepped into the ancient city with Dark Dance. Dark Dance's realm wasn't very high, but she knew a lot about the Dark Moon Star. She explained excitedly, "Esteemed Master, this is one of the oldest cities on the Dark Moon Star. There are many rare treasures and unknown things here. We can go in and take a look. Yi Qinghan nodded. He also wanted to know what kind of connection this dark moon star had with the ancient immortal world and Greedy Wolf Star. Greedy Wolf Star was definitely a planet with life. However, whether it was the inner world of a supreme immortal emperor or an ancestor was unknown. Yi Qinghan hadn't found out how big the planet created by the immortal emperor was. He also hadn't seen the ancestral planet, so he knew very little about this vast universe. The two stepped into the ancient city. Following Dark Dance's explanation, Yi Qinghan knew that other than resources, the common currency of the Dark Moon Star was the Dark Moon Coin. It was a very rare thing and couldn't be counterfeited. Therefore, it was the best currency. Yi Qinghan didn't have such a thing. Moreover, the Dark Moon Coin was useless to him. Therefore, he didn't even think about getting it. The two walked on the ancient streets. There were many unknown antiques and sculptures piled up on both sides of the street. The people of the Dark Moon Star didn't know what these things represented. Therefore, they weren't valuable. Yi Qinghan looked at these things. Some of them were like totems and some were sculptures from the immortal world. They were indeed worthless and had no research value. However, there were some things that even he didn't know what they were. These antiques were filled with ancient laws and had been passed down for tens of millions of years. These things had research value. It was very possible to find some rules from these laws and create one's own supreme divine ability and secret technique. Yi Qinghan touched these antique sculptures. Some were carved out of stone and some were carved out of wood. They were attached to the laws. Countless years of wind and sun hadn't destroyed them. Actually, some of these things are quite valuable, especially the wooden sculptures. They contain many Taoist techniques. If you can comprehend some of them, you might even be able to reach the fourth form. Your combat prowess will increase countless times, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Dark Dance was shocked. She didn't expect the antiques piled up on both sides of the street to be so powerful. Whoosh, Yi Qinghan moved and appeared next to a gigantic dragon-tiger beast mask. He stretched out his hand and put it on his face, as if this mask had been made just for him. Moreover, the mask emitted a faint chill. It was imbued with the power of laws, and its defensive capabilities were extremely exaggerated. Such a treasure is placed here. What a waste of heavenly gift! Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. His flame ancestor's eyes could see through everything. He could even see the Emperor's aura on the mask. It was clear that this mask was made by a primordial immortal emperor. If you want, I can buy it for you. Everything that can be placed here is for sale. It depends on how much the merchant is willing to sell. Dark Dance raised her head and looked at the shop in front. However, at this moment, a middle-aged man in embroidered robes walked over with a smile. If the two of you are interested in anything, you can tell me. The price is negotiable. The middle-aged man smiled. Yi Qinghan pointed at the mask on his face and said in a dignified manner, "I want this. State your price." The middle-aged man was shocked. He hesitated for a moment before reminding, "This thing is extremely ominous. Generations of owners have all died unnatural deaths. No worries. State your price." Yi Qinghan said firmly. Chapter 2696. Yi Qinghan was determined to get this mask because he already knew the value of this mask. Not only was it a defensive item, but it could also awaken the soul and put it in a perfect state. Cultivating with it would be twice the result with half the effort. The middle-aged man was very observant. Although he could not see Yi Qinghan's eyes, he could feel Yi Qinghan's determination to get this item. 100,000 dark moon coins, no bargaining, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan did not know much about dark moon coins, but he felt that it was not an exaggerated number. Besides, something refined by a primordial immortal emperor could not be measured by price. Therefore, just as he was about to nod and agree, Dark Dance looked at the middle-aged man with an exaggerated expression and asked in surprise, "Boss, are you robbing me? 100,000 dark moon coins? Why don't you want a city?" Dark Dance was a kind and pure person, but at this moment, she felt that the middle-aged man was too exaggerated. Her eyes were wide open, and she looked very dissatisfied and angry. Even so, she did not curse. Yi Qinghan looked at Dark Dance and asked indifferently, "What is this dark moon coin? Is 100,000 dark moon coins a big unit? Is it big? Very big. Is it?" Dark Dance was speechless. This guy did not even know how much 100,000 dark moon coins was, and he was already nodding and agreeing. Was he not afraid of being scammed? However, at this moment, an arrogant woman appeared in front of the shop. She was pretty, but her chest was so flat that it was hard to tell the front from the back. There were also a few followers following her. Dark Dance pursed her lips and gestured to Yi Qinghan. She whispered, "Look at that little girl and then look at mine." After saying that, Dark Dance puffed up her proud chest and said with certainty, "Is it big or not?" Yi Qinghan glanced at Princess Taiping, and then at the princess with the surging wave. He chuckled and said, "This comparison is very novel and very intuitive. However, I know that 100,000 dark moon coins is a big number, but I still don't know how big it is. Watch me." Dark Dancer volunteered and pulled Yi Qinghan behind her. She said to the middle-aged man, "Would you sell it for a cheaper price?" Of course, seeing how sincere you are, this old man is more than happy to lower the price a little. The middle-aged man, George, had a smile on his face. He thought that Yi Qinghan and Dark Dance would lower the price and buy it. Whoosh! Dark Dancer extended 5 slender fingers and said, 500 dark moon coins. Cough cough, Yi Qinghan was almost shocked by this bargain. He choked on his saliva and coughed. Obviously, the boss was also shocked. How was this little girl bargaining? She was clearly chopping off his head. The middle-aged boss, George, pretended to be speechless and said, "Little girl, this bargain is a little too big. You want me to lose money?" "Boss, you're bullying my friend because she's a foreigner. However, I also know about the origin of this great inauspicious mask. Its previous owners were all the top 3 elites of Dark Moon Planet. However, every time the owner cultivated to the 4th state, they would mysteriously die a tragic death. Their bodies would turn into dried corpses, and not even a drop of qi and blood would be left behind. Therefore, the people of Dark Moon Planet thought that this mask was a blood-sucking mask. Hence, it was called the Great Inauspicious Mask. It has been here for a long time, right? No one bought it. If you put it here, its value would be like that beauty over there." Yi Qinghan did not expect this pure and kind girl to be so good at bargaining. Her analogy was also very strange and unprecedented. 500 dark moon coins and 100,000 dark moon coins. The difference was like heaven and earth. Most importantly, this boss, George, was actually hesitating. "I can't sell it. I will lose money. My purchase price is 1,000 dark moon coins," George said with a bitter smile. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly as he snorted and said, "The purchase price is 1,000. You are asking me for 100,000? A cold aura enveloped George, causing him to almost fall to the ground in fright. Dark Dancer was also given a fright. She casually grabbed a handful of dark moon coins, about a few hundred of them, and pulled Yi Qinghan along as she ran. "Don't be angry, don't be angry. You are the one who gave him a chance to raise the price." Dark Dancer was still very kind. Even if she was cheated by an unscrupulous merchant, she still did not wish for Yi Qinghan to kill George. Yi Qinghan slowly took off the mask and stared at the dragon tiger Fong. After observing it for a long time, he asked in a deep voice, "You said that the previous owners of this mask died very miserably. All of them were like dried corpses. Were they sucked dry by the mask? Dark Dancer immediately nodded and said, "That is the legend. According to what I know, the previous two owners of the mask died the same way. They were both very miserable. Their bodies were twisted sinisterly, and there was not even a trace of blood left after death. I thought that you would understand it very well since you were willing to buy it for 100,000 Dark Moon coins. It seems like you don't understand it at all." Yi Qinghan really could not tell who made this mask in a short amount of time unless he returned to the undying immortal world and asked the rich native. However, he was still somewhat guarded in his heart, so he did not wear it on his face and put it away. The two continued walking as their eyes wandered around the street. Yi Qinghan had found two very good treasures for Dark Dancer. As long as she could understand them, she would definitely become a supreme expert in the future. Even if she was not at the undying immortal emperor level, she would be at least at the level of an immemorial divine general. Yi Qinghan specially instructed, "After you go back, calm down and study the carving technique and the Tao technique contained within. Although I do not know who made these two treasures, I can tell that their cultivation is definitely higher than mine." Dark Dancer acted as if she had found a treasure. She hid the two strange sculptures in her clothes as if she was afraid of losing them. These things were very high level. Even the divine ring could not store them. The human Tao Emperor Pagoda was not here either. The two had to carry the treasures on their back. Especially Dark Dancer, whose breasts were already very big. If she hid more things, it would be unsightly. Along the way, people were staring at her, and she almost wanted to find a hole to hide in. Yi Qinghan strolled leisurely, searching for treasures and resting at the same time. He thought that he was about to reach the end when he caught sight of a black iron treasure that looked like an arm out of the corner of his eye. His heart almost stopped. Buzz! The right arm recovered on its own and shot out a terrifying power. The entire city fell into a dead silence. The oppressive aura made all the experts in the city not dare to breathe. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and reached out to grab the black iron treasure. His fingertips trembled and directly pierced into the black iron, tearing apart the black iron outside and revealing a naked arm. It was a left arm, including the left palm. The left arm was chopped off by someone. Yan Zu's left arm. Yi Qinghan released his aura and suppressed the entire city. Like an immemorial war emperor, his soul covered the entire city. How is this possible? How can Yan Zu's left arm be here? During the immemorial era, someone came here. I am not the first person to reach Dark Moon Planet. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. He was almost certain of his guess. Otherwise, there was no way to explain why Yan Zu's left arm was here. Yi Qinghan held his left arm that was in a deep slumber. Perhaps it was because too much time had passed, even the recovery of his right arm did not activate his left arm. He then turned to Dark Dancer and asked in a deep voice, "Dark Dancer, according to historical records, am I the first alien to enter planet Dark Moon?" Dark Dancer shook her head because she really did not know. Escaping so far with Yan Zu's left arm, it was very likely that he was from the Yan clan. Moreover, he was a direct descendant. Yi Qinghan did not think anymore and said directly, "Buy it. I will bring you back to Dark Moon Palace. I want to find some information and historical records." Chapter 2697. The owner of Ancestor Yan's left arm was frightened by Yi Qinghan's aura and did not dare to raise the price. He only offered 1,300 Dark Moon coins, which was all the assets Dark Dance had. A princess only had about 1,000 Dark Moon coins on her. It could be seen that Dark Moon coins were extremely scarce. Yi Qinghan took Ancestor Yan's left arm and returned to the Dark Moon Hall with Dark Dance. At this time, Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon was much more well-behaved. When she saw Yi Qinghan, she took the initiative to retreat. Dark Dance gestured for the others to retreat. She brought Yi Qinghan into the Dark Moon Clan's Ancient Classics Pavilion. The secret history of the Dark Moon Clan was here. Looking at the countless secret histories, it would probably take a lot of time to flip through the history that he wanted. Dark Dance, call Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon over. Gather the oldest people in the clan here. I have something to ask them, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Dark Dance hurriedly left the Ancient Classics Pavilion and informed Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon. Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon did not dare to anger this big shot. She quickly gathered the oldest elders in the clan and brought them to the Ancient Classics Pavilion. Yi Qinghan was flipping through the ancient records. He did not turn his head and only said faintly, "Everyone, I want to know some historical information. I hope that the seniors can tell me the truth." Heavenly Venerate Dark Moon took a deep breath, bowed and said, "Lord Yi, please ask. During the primordial era, did any foreign races descend on the Dark Moon planet? If so, where are they now?" Yi Qinghan turned his head and asked in a serious voice. The few old elders had almost transformed into the Tao. Most of their cultivation was around the first heaven realm. They did not have much combat strength now, but their wisdom and memories were still there. They had read all the ancient records. They looked at each other and discussed with voice transmissions. Then, the oldest royal clan elder said in a hoarse voice, "Lord Yi, during the primordial era, there was indeed a large tribe that descended on the Dark Moon planet. There were about hundreds of thousands of people. Our ancestors thought that they were attacking the Dark Moon planet and were about to counterattack. However, tens of thousands of experts appeared. They were ancient gods and ancient immortals. They were working together to hunt down the tribe of hundreds of thousands of people. As you know, the Dark Moon clan and the ancient gods and ancient immortals have a grudge against each other. Therefore, we joined forces with the tribe to fight. Both sides. In the end, both sides suffered heavy losses. More than half of the ancestors and ancient gods and ancient immortals were killed. Of the ancient classics, Yi Qinghan looked at the elder and pondered for a moment. He frowned and said, "Where are the people of that tribe now? Back then, they fought on the Dark Moon planet for a few decades. In the end, after the ancient gods and ancient immortals were all killed, the people of that tribe chose to move. According to historical records, they seemed to be moving toward the east. If historical records remember correctly, about 3 light years to the east there is a big planet with life. The people of that tribe all live there. Our Dark Moon clan's ancestor experts went there and returned successfully," the old man continued to reply. Yi Qinghan was almost certain that the people of that tribe had moved after the Yen clan was defeated. If he could really find a Yen clan tribe here, as a Yen clan elder, he would definitely do his best to bring them back to the immortal realm and reclaim the Yen clan's territory. "Do you have a specific address and route?" Yi Qinghan asked in a deep voice. The elders all shook their heads. The oldest elder said with certainty, "The ancestors passed down some information. They said that the life star is in the east. With the speed of the fourth form, you can reach it in 30 years. If you really want to go, you can just go in the direction of the East Divine Planet." East Divine Planet? Yi Qinghan stepped out of the Ancient Classics Pavilion and looked at the night sky. He asked, "Which one is the East Divine Planet?" Heavenly Venerable Dark Moon wanted to get Yi Qinghan to leave the Dark Moon planet as soon as possible. She immediately pointed to a brighter planet in the east and said, "Master Yi, that shining brighter planet is the East Divine Planet." At this moment, Dark Dance reminded him, "The East Divine Planet disappears once every 3 years. After it disappears again, the light will weaken. You might not be able to tell. Do you want me to lead the way?" Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and looked at Dark Dance. Her cultivation was too weak. However, he really didn't dare to believe that it was someone else. These elders and heavenly venerable dark moon didn't remind him that the dark moon planet would disappear and weaken its light. If he left directly just now, he might get lost in the galaxy and lose his direction. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and swept dark dance away. The galaxy was torn apart and the two rushed into the depths of the galaxy. Dark dance was wrapped in Yi Qinghan's energy. Even the astral winds couldn't blow a strand of her hair. Under Yi Qinghan's protection, the dangers in the galaxy wouldn't endanger her. Yi Qinghan flew faster and faster along the East Divine Planet. He flew through the air and brushed past the dead stars several times. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan turned into a meteor and created flames in the galaxy. The galaxy changed and the stars moved. Time flew by and 3 years passed in a flash. Yi Qinghan almost raised his speed to the highest level. He was much faster than an ordinary fourth form. Whoosh! Countless stars moved in trajectories in the galaxy like dots of light. Once they got close, the endless dead stars would produce a terrifying suction force. It was unimaginable that the Yen clan's tribe would migrate so far with the old and weak. Yi Qinghan rushed into the depths of the galaxy. He didn't even have time to fuse with the Yen ancestor's left arm. The East Divine Planet was getting bigger and bigger. However, just as the 3rd year passed, the majestic East Divine Planet disappeared in the blink of an eye. It disappeared into thin air. Yi Qinghan watched helplessly as East Divine Planet disappeared. Suddenly, the galaxy warped, space-time changed, and the direction changed. At this moment, even Dark Dance couldn't tell the direction. Master Yi, we need to wait for the East Divine Planet to appear again, Dark Dance said quickly. Yi Qinghan frowned and asked, how long will it take for it to appear again? About half a month. The time is uncertain. It could also take a month. Dark Dance was afraid that Yi Qinghan would go crazy again. When she spoke, she kept looking at Yi Qinghan from the corner of her eyes. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction where the East Divine Planet disappeared. His eyes flashed and looked through the void. The void in front of him distorted. He finally understood that it wasn't the East Divine Planet that disappeared, but the space-time in front of him that was swallowed by the wormhole. People couldn't see through the wormhole and would think that the East Divine Planet had disappeared. Once they entered the wormhole, no one knew where they would be teleported to. Therefore, when the East Divine Planet disappeared, many people were lost here. In fact, they weren't really lost. They entered the wormhole and were teleported away. Interesting. A wormhole appeared in 3 years. Yi Qinghan looked in front of him curiously. The desire to explore rushed out from the depths of his heart. He really wanted to enter the wormhole and find out where it led to. The galaxy twisted and turned, forming a huge vortex that sank downward. However, ordinary people couldn't see it. Only Yi Qinghan's eyes were special and could see through all laws. Half a month later, the wormhole disappeared. The illusion of vision was gone, and the East Divine Planet was still in front of him. Yi Qinghan increased his speed. It took him about 20 years to cross the East Divine Planet. Finally, he saw a huge planet with life. There wasn't much spirit energy on it, and there were very few places where one could live. The other places were almost all dead. Whoosh! Boom! Yi Qinghan rushed towards the ancient planet with Dark Dance in tow. He tore through the clouds and appeared in a desert. It was incomparably hot with surging heat waves. This place was simply not suitable for human survival. Although Yi Qinghan was exhausted, he didn't want to waste any time. He rushed in the direction of the human traces he had found in the sky. After a few hours, he found a tribe. From afar, this tribe didn't seem to have much connection with the Yen clan. Even Yi Qinghan himself wondered if he had wasted more than 20 years. Chapter 2698. Yi Qinghan walked over from afar. He stared at the tribe's totem and the decorations around it. It was very different from the Yen tribes. Did I get the wrong place? The people in this tribe aren't from the Yen tribe? Yi Qinghan was secretly shocked. He couldn't accept it. Da-da-da. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the two stepped on the fine stones. Waves of heat came from the surface. The living environment on this planet was very cruel. They stepped on a stone path. There was lush grass on the opposite side. 10 strangely dressed children were playing in the grass and bushes. When they saw Yi Qinghan and Enwu, they immediately screamed and ran away, attracting the attention of the people in the tribe. Whoosh! Dong dong dong! The war drums at the entrance of the tribe were beaten. It was deafening. Then, the war drums in the distance were beaten again and again. Whoosh! Whoosh! In a moment, at least 30 people at the mystic immortal realm and above rushed to the entrance to confront Yi Qinghan. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Then, the first big shot's aura recovered and appeared at the entrance of the tribe in the blink of an eye. The second, the third, it was just a small tribe. There were actually a few big shots. It was a little exaggerated. After about half an hour, there were more than 100 experts standing in front of Yi Qinghan. There were 11 big shot. 2 of them were in the 3rd state and 1 was in the 4th state. Their auras were ancient and solemn. Their deep eyes were filled with doubt and surprise. They obviously didn't expect outsiders to appear here. Whoosh! Boom! Yi Qinghan's aura recovered. The Yen tribe's aura surged. A supreme aura spread out and looked down on the entire village. They didn't seem to have the aura of the Yen tribe, but they seemed to have the aura of the Yen tribe. It was very strange. Yi Qinghan wasn't sure if they were from the Yen tribe. How did they hide their aura? Even he, the inheritor of the Yen tribe, couldn't be sure. He's from the Yen tribe. What a rich aura of the Yen tribe! The old man in the 4th state looked at Yi Qinghan in shock and blurted out. Suddenly, tears flowed down his face as if he had lost control of his emotions. I am the Yen Emperor's successor. I bear the heavy responsibility of reviving the Yen clan. You are all Yen clan members. Why are there no traces of Yen clan blood in their bodies? Yi Qinghan asked in a deep voice when he saw the surprised expressions on the elders' faces. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the entrance of the tribe was in a mess. There was a lot of discussion, surprise, excitement, and ecstasy. A descendant of the crown prince, the successor of the first emperor, has come to find us. Several tens of people roared. The war drums were beaten, rumbling endlessly. They transmitted into the heavens and swept towards the depths of this star. It was as if they were notifying the other clansmen. At this time, Yi Qinghan was certain that the person in front of him was a member of the Flame tribe. It was just that he had used a special method to conceal his blood aura. Tap tap tap, Yi Qinghan brought Dark Dance and walked towards the crowd. He looked up and saw many people moving in the depths of the tribe. Some women even carried kitchen knives and rushed towards the entrance of the tribe with their children. It seemed like they were here to fight for their lives. The child was holding a wooden stick and a wooden spear. He was furious and had a ferocious look on his face. As soon as he rushed over, he looked at Yi Qinghan with hatred. Many people had just arrived at the entrance of the tribe and didn't know the situation. They didn't know that Yi Qinghan was the Yen Emperor's descendant. They thought that the enemy had chased them here. That was why their aura was completely different. It seems like their knowledge of history is not bad. They know that every inch of land, every inch of blood, and 1,000,000 disciples and 1,000,000 soldiers. Yi Qinghan looked at the tribe moving quickly. There were about 70 to 80,000 people. There were the old, the weak, the sick, the disabled, women, and children. They were on the 4th step. The 1st step was full of old people. They were decaying old people. They were not afraid of death and thought that death was nothing to be regretted. That was why they were at the front. The 2nd step was full of middle-aged people, and the 3rd step was full of young people. This kind of formation seemed to be the result of many years of battle research. It was all for the sake of preserving a legacy for the Yen clan. Yi Qinghan looked at this formation and felt his heart ache. These people didn't have it easy. In order to survive, they must have suffered more than him. The emotions in their eyes were very depressed. Sorry, I'm late. Yi Qinghan bowed deeply. This bow was for these old people. For the sake of the Yen clan's legacy, they had blocked at the front countless times. Hua! The old man slowly stepped towards Yi Qinghan and reached out to support Yi Qinghan's arm. He stroked Yen Zhu's right arm. Even though he was in his fourth state, he still couldn't control his emotions. Tears flowed down his face uncontrollably. After countless battles, the bone-piercing wounds were still vivid in his mind. However, he had never cried. Today, because of the appearance of a Yen clan member, he shed tears. When he saw Yen Zhu's right arm, he couldn't stop crying. Woo woo woo! The old man cried out in grief. His body trembled and he wanted to kneel on the ground. However, Yi Qinghan supported him tightly, not allowing him to kneel. Elder, I don't have the qualifications to receive your kneel. It was you who allowed the Yen clan's legacy to be passed down, not me. This bow should be mine. Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the old man. Get up! You are the successor of the Crown Prince. You represent the Crown Prince of the Yen clan. How can this old man accept your kneel? The old man immediately helped Yi Qinghan up and said respectfully. Yi Qinghan had too many questions to ask them. He said in a low voice, Elder, dismiss everyone. Let's talk alone. I have something to ask. Okay. The old man quickly nodded. Hua! The old man waved his hand and everyone left reluctantly. They looked back at Yi Qinghan every 3 steps. Dark Dance didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to do next. Yi Qinghan said indifferently, Dark Dance, go play with the children. I have something to discuss with the elder. Dark Dance didn't dare to disturb Yi Qinghan. She immediately turned and walked towards the children. Yi Qinghan and the old man walked side by side. They came to a remote valley and sat in a pavilion facing each other. This old man didn't expect that after so many years, someone from the Yen clan would return here. The old man said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath, looked at the old man's withered hand, and saw that there were still fresh wounds. He whispered, It's a long story. I was fighting a noble battle in the undying immortal realm, but my identity was discovered by a few primordial overgod heirs. They didn't inform anyone else, and instead chose to ambush me. In the end, I fought with them for dozens of years, fleeing as I fought. In the end, I killed my way to planet Voracious Wolf, where I accidentally found a teleportation stele that sent us to planet Dark Moon. After 2 battles, I successfully killed 3 primordial overgod heirs. Although their overgod sparks escaped, they won't be able to return to their peak state without at least 100,000 years. Killing 3 primordial overgod heirs in a joint ambush. The old man's pupils shrank. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan's combat power to be so exaggerated. 5 primordial overgod heirs appeared. 4 of them ambushed me. However, all 4 of them are considered dead. There are no exceptions. Yi Qinghan said with certainty. Good. That's great. The old man clapped his hands and shouted excitedly. Even though Yi Qinghan had killed 4 primordial overgod heirs, he still couldn't vent his anger. When Yi Qinghan saw the old man's excited expression, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Only he knew how difficult this battle had been. Elder, what happened to your injuries? Yi Qinghan quickly calmed down and asked in a low voice. The old man's breath stagnated and he said helplessly, Back then, a group of primordial immortals and primordial overgods chased us here. We joined forces with the Dark Moon and killed a group of them. However, there was another group that didn't die. They chased us here and fought with us for countless years. Both sides suffered great losses. In these years, their advantage grew stronger and stronger while our numbers dwindled. In order to hide our identities, we had to find medicinal herbs to smear on our bodies. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.